It is my
What's going on, everybody? Forgot the mic. Welcome to LTMB Live. Let the madness begin. I'm Will Gaillard.
And I'm Mike White.
As always, this is LTMB Live again. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's been a long weekend, as always.
It's already May, dude.
Yeah, man. May the 1st, man.
I feel like we was
the 5th month, dog.
I know.
Damn.
A third of the year gone. A third of the year already gone in the books.
Well, if this keeps happening, then we'll be done with the Trump administration sooner than
we thought.
Yeah, so that's a plus. Even though I'm not ready to speed up my life, though.
Oh, true that, though.
You know what I'm saying? Hope everybody out there is good. We got Facebook in the house, all one of you.
It's probably Zuckerberg himself watching.
Like, we're not suppressing you.
Yeah,
See, I'm up in here.
I'm up in here. I even liked your video and shared it to no one.
But yeah, we haven't broadcast on Facebook for a few days, trying to.
A few days.
Yeah, been a minute.
About a few weeks.
Yeah, been a few weeks probably now. Yeah, it has been a few weeks. But yeah, we're trying to give the Periscope thing a try. So you know, just trying to do different things. Software updates coming.
True that.
Coming soon.
True that.
Coming soon. Let's see before we get into it. Yeah, today the fourth day of the teacher strike in Arizona. They've been staying away from school, so like we reported on before, they intend to stay away from the classrooms until their grievances are settled.
I saw this Twitter, I wish I could remember who put this tweet out, but it was talking about how ain't nobody talking about giving teachers guns now.
Oh yeah. I did see that. I did see that one. That's right.
Now that they marching.
That's right.
Strong. Ain't nobody talking about giving them guns now, dog.
Because that's even more money, right? That'd be even more money you got to shell out.
Not just more money you got to shell out. Them mugs would be scared out of their minds, dog. Just thinking in the back of their head. Yeah. I wonder if any one of these teachers is packing right now.
Coming to the Capitol building. All these rallies and stuff.
Strapped. Straight strapped.
That would be funny, man. That would be funny.
Yo, your Facebook post didn't get as much pushback as I thought, though. You had a lot of agreement.
Yeah. It didn't. Because I was going to, right at the end of the post, I was going to say, let the contrarian viewpoints start or begin or whatever like that.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Exactly.
Like that.
But yeah, there weren't too many. There were a couple.
I kind of like, I don't think I articulated this ever, as it comes to, progressives. But I think maybe I'm guilty of kind of having an unrealistic view of fellow human beings that happen to be, progressive. Maybe I'm guilty of starting the conversation off from the wrong place, and that's from a place of assumptions, right? Thinking that, like, assigning expectations to, I don't know, to things that have nothing to do with politics or positions. Because, like, when I was thinking about it, like, the political platform of progressives is obviously different. But I don't know, like, our processing platform is not different, meaning our brains. Like, our brains are no different. We respond to the same stimuli as everyone else, whether they're conservative or libertarian. Like, if I stick you in the hand with a thumbtack, it's going to hurt you just as much as a conservative or libertarian. If you're going through some sort of political trauma, your responses might be in the same line. You may not have the same result, but you'll go through the same emotions as like a conservative or a libertarian. You know what I'm saying? We all look for the same things too: community, identity, and purpose. That purpose may not be maybe a bigoted one, but it's still nonetheless a purpose. So my purpose may be different than theirs, but ultimately we look for the same things in life. And I think there was an assumption that progressives have some sort of emotional stability that no one else has, no other political group has. And looking at how, the consequences of this election fallout kind of illustrated that emotionally we're no different than anybody else. And that vulnerability has been unmasked in so many ways.
Yeah, it has. The way we debate, the way we tank debates.
It's actually the same tactics.
It's the same.
It doesn't matter, like, you can call it right-wing tactics. I don't believe in that.
No, it's not. It's just the tactic of humans. That's all it is. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on or what your ideology is. It's just the tactic of humans.
And it makes sense. I understand. I think progressives came face to face with what they already knew. You know what I'm saying, about their political system. We already knew that. It just hit us so hard. We didn't know how to take it.
Again, like, if you go back to 2015, 2016, when everybody was uniting around the Bernie Sanders campaign, it was harder to see that because everybody was pretty much unified on one specific purpose. And then when that purpose was evaporated, then it came back to real life, man. Came back to real life. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so Levi Tillemann is an author, inventor, and he's also a former official in the energy department under President Barack Obama. Levi Tillemann is also a Democratic candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives in the Colorado 6th District. So he seems to be running on a progressive platform. He's focusing on clean elections, Medicare for all, combating climate change, free community college, doing something about economic inequality. So, like I said, he has a pretty progressive platform. Now, there's another nominee, or there's another candidate in the Democratic field for the nomination by the name of Jason Crow. Jason Crow seems to be more like a mainstream Democrat, that type of platform. He won't go as far as saying that he will go as far as saying that healthcare is a right, but he won't go as far as saying that we need single payer Medicare for all. I haven't heard him say anything about tuition-free colleges and universities. Haven't heard him say anything about that. So again, he's more in line with your mainstream Democrat. So to Tillemann, from his vantage point, the Democratic establishment was pushing Jason Crow along. And he said this wasn't like a very I guess explicit pushing, but he got the feeling that they were behind him, pushing him, and they weren't doing as much for him. So this is per an article that's in The Intercept. It says Tillemann says the decision to no, you know what? No, that's let me not even I went too far. But anyway, so Tillemann was at in Colorado, and the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, his name is Steny Hoyer. So he went to talk to Steny Hoyer about the current race, about the race that he's in, about, to get the Democratic nomination. He decided to record the conversation because, again, he felt like the Democratic establishment was pushing the Jason Crow guy along, and they weren't doing anything for Tillemann. So he wanted to capture this on microphone, and it was a pretty wise decision because what we heard was, I guess, what anybody would expect. We heard corruption. We heard the Democratic elite thinking that they know everything and that they know what's best for regular people. They know what's best for the voters.
Pretty much telling the dude to scram because you're not going to win.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
Much, I don't even like to use the word encouraging
him
to drop out. I don't like to use the word encouraging because that has like it can have a negative connotation if you give it one, but he was encouraging him to drop out.
He was telling him to drop out.
Yeah, he was pretty much saying,
blatantly,
you're not going to win because your other dude got the party's nomination.
Right, and we made that. We made that decision.
Yeah, I think that should be focused on. We made that decision.
So this is where the article The Intercept picks up at. Tillemann says that the decision to record the conversation came after months of hints that party officials did not want him as the candidate. Though he notified the party of his intention to run, he had trouble gaining an audience with senior DCC officials, obtaining polling data promised by the DCCC, or even gaining access to resumes of Democratic campaign staff. The party continued to promise neutrality while inviting only Crow to a candidate training seminar, Tillemann alleges. So, again, The Intercept got the recording from Tillemann, and they agreed to kind of they plucked some pieces out of that, and that meeting out, the relevant parts, the newsworthy parts, I believe the personal information, I guess, that was shared in that meeting. They kind of pulled that out. They redacted all the information. So the recording was about 4 or 5 minutes, something like that. Mm-hmm. But you can hear Steny Hoyer saying things like, yeah, I'm for Crow. I am for Crow because the judgment was made very early on. I didn't know Crow. I didn't participate in the decision, but a decision was made very early on by the Colorado delegation.
So essentially, he doesn't even believe in Crow himself because he doesn't know him. So he's just
not at first, yeah.
Not at first, but he's just following the party line because that's what he was told to do.
Yes, this is the party leadership. This is Democratic insiders. This is the party itself saying that we are going to put our thumbs on the scale.
Nothing mentioned about
to benefit one particular candidate that we think is best for the voters. Never mind what they think.
Didn't mention anything about Crow being the better candidate.
No. Throughout this interview, at least what was shared through The Intercept, I didn't once hear Hoyer alleged that Crow was actually the better candidate and or that he had a better platform than Tillman. So if we go on, Tillman responded to Hoyer's quote saying, your position is a decision was made very early on before voters had a say, and that's fine because the DCC knows better than the voters of the 6th congressional district, and we should line up behind that candidate. Hoyer responded, that's certainly a consequence of our decision.
Yo, like it's nothing.
Matter of fact,
like it's nothing. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
This is just business, man.
So again, whose visibility does that affect? Whose visibility does this kind of process affect?
Probably your progressive candidates, probably your grassroots candidates.
Tillman.
Yeah. Probably
because they're not giving him access to the same things they're giving Crow access to. They're not helping him at all. So he can't even get a foothold.
No.
In a campaign race,
like effectively run his campaign and reach the number of voters that Crow will be able to reach.
Because from the jump, he's being kneecapped.
That's right. And of course, it has to do with who he is and what his platform is. Again, like I said at the beginning, he has a platform that includes tuition-free colleges and universities. He has a platform that talks about Medicare for all. He has a platform that talks about clean elections. Like I said, Crow doesn't go as far in his speak. So again, the mainstream Democrat, as we know, usually doesn't go that far either.
This seems like, I don't know if you would consider it a bombshell, but this is kind of an instance of a recorded interaction.
Oh, it's a bombshell.
It's a bombshell.
Yeah,
okay,
because it's recorded.
All right,
yeah.
All right, you said it's a bombshell.
Because all of us would know that. All of us would suspect that these things happen behind closed doors all the time without a microphone and a video.
Right, and we always talk about that. We always talk about like people being caught red-handed.
Yes, yeah. Right? Like we need a video footage
or clean audio.
That's what we need.
Money changing hands.
Right, and them saying what the money was for. Yeah,
what
exactly.
it was about.
Right.
But since it's such a bombshell, like I Googled, Levi Tillman,
right,
and CNN. Those two things together. And then CNN and Hoyer. I Googled CNN. I just tried everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. Also did the same thing and typed in MSNBC.
Right.
Couldn't find anything.
Couldn't find anything, huh?
Could not find one thing.
Well, the story's out there. Any corporate media outlet that wanted to pick up on it, it's there. Wonder why they didn't report on this relevant topic. Makes you wonder.
Well,
right?
It's funny. Like, do Democrats just wonder why? Do they go to sleep at night? Do they just, are they curious as to why there are progressive candidates running against them? Do they understand that?
I'm sure.
Should that be an indicator to them that they aren't left? Leftist. Sorry.
But see, of course they understand that, but they don't care because they know their strategy will win. Well, it's always won.
True. But do any Democrats lack self-awareness, or are they all consciously aware of their deceit?
I'm gonna go with the latter.
You think so?
Yeah.
You don't think maybe they see themselves as leftists? Like, I guess, but only in relation to the right?
It depends on who you're talking about. Are you talking about the Democratic leadership, or are you talking about the candidates?
Candidates.
Ooh.
Leadership is a different story.
That is a different story. The candidates, I would go with the former maybe. I think probably there are some of them that actually believe that they are left, that they are actually what's best for the people.
They're looking at who's on the opposing side in relation to the right, and they're not judging whether they're left or progressive against actual leftists.
Right. Because in every election, we hear the same thing. Throughout the course of time, we've heard the same thing. Like, especially in the 2016 election, the Hillary Clinton camp saying, you're going too far. That won't work. You're going too far. We're not ready for that. America isn't ready for that. Politics isn't ready for that. So we have to just go this far. We can't reach for big things. We got to just take it step by step by step.
See, remember what Court said last week when he called in? He said the Democrats are bred to be docile. So if they're bred to be docile, do you think there's a bit of lack of self-awareness even from the leadership? Now, you are willing to go as far as saying maybe some of the candidates perceive themselves a certain way and they lack self-awareness, but even though, they've been in the game for God knows how long, 3 decades or more, right? They know how the game is played. Is there even an ounce of the kind of any sign in their brains that indicates some sort of lack of self-awareness at all? Do you you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's an amount of duplicity in I guess in the base, in the Democratic establishment, the insiders. I think that a lot of them probably do think they're doing what's best for people, but there's still that part of them that understands that if they actually wanted to represent people, they could go a lot further. I think there's an aspect of it that I think they're probably scared of losing their positions to Republicans, depending on what state they're in, what kind of congressional district they're in.
Right. I was just saying, like, maybe they've been in there so long that they have kind of created like this delusion that they are kind of progressive. That's what I'm saying. Like,
kind of like you tell a lie enough times,
even for your top leadership to be delusional.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like I said, like what you're describing is you tell a lie enough times, you really start to believe it. So they might be telling themselves that this is what the people want. This is what the people want. This is what the people want. But and they don't have to question it anymore.
Exactly. And my thing is, like, even if you look at the 2016 election fallout, and if you look at all the different reactions from your top leadership in the Democratic Party, it's been the same line of thinking. Is searching for every other excuse other than their, I guess, the imitation leftism. And so they
imitation
leftism. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the imitation leftism.
They got me thinking of like imitation
crab meat. Yo, my mom did make some bomb seafood salad.
Oh yeah. That's my past too, man. But still, yeah.
Because you see it all the time. Like, you just don't see it from leadership. You see it from the Democratic contributors, like on CNN and NBC. They're constantly blaming progressives for not voting Democrat, even though they constantly kneecap progressive candidates. You know what I'm saying? So I think part of it is acting, but I think a lot of it is maybe they lack self-awareness and are delusional. But isn't this kind of like ironic, this audio surfacing, like right on the heels of the DNC announcing their lawsuit to WikiLeaks, Donald Trump, and Russia? You know what I'm saying? Now it makes them look like fools, because if they actually want to like be a champion for, I guess, democracy and open elections and all that, you would think that they would start in their backyard first.
They lack introspect, though. Like you said, they've told the lie to themselves. They've tossed it around in their own heads. They speak to their own colleagues, and the feeling is there. The thought is there. Is solidified. And I think it's even more solidified because they do keep winning elections, especially in districts when they're like virtually unopposed, or there's somebody that like in Colorado right here, where they're putting their thumb on the scale, and Tillman can't get any traction.
And that again, and where their whole resistance surrounds free and fair elections. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it so disingenuous.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Like you were saying, Crow was asking. Not Crow. Hoyer was asking Tillman to get out of the race multiple times throughout this interview. Through this meeting that he had, multiple times he had asked Tillman to get out of the race and just leave it for Crow. Leave it so that Crow would win the race, win the Democratic nomination. But if he wasn't going to get out of the race, he hoped that he wouldn't badmouth the eventual Democratic nominee in Crow.
Yeah, like you're expecting a candidate that's basically cut off at the knees not to feel slighted or jaded at all.
Hoyer is coming clean in this meeting, saying that yes, we are rigging this game. We're rigging the process. We are throwing all of our support behind Crow. This started at the very beginning. We don't believe in like democracy or whatever that is. No, we believe in choosing who we think is right, and then presenting that to the voters. And then the voters can just say, okay, that's who's running. Okay, we'll vote for him. That's what. Now, see, you remember in part of Hoyer's comments was that somebody that we believe could win the general election, right? Okay, so he said we pick somebody that we believe could win in the general, and we throw all of our support behind them, right? Now, I remember a similar type of idea. Like,
what are you talking about?
It was like
what? Wait, what are you talking about? What are you alluding to, Will?
It was a while ago.
What are you hinting at?
It was like,
what are you hinting at?
It was like 2-3 years ago, something like. Because this is May 2018 now. Okay, this is almost 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, 2000,
right?
2016?
No, 15.
2015?
Yeah, 2015. Smack dab in like the onset of political campaigning for the president of the United States, and there was this guy. There was this guy named Benji. No, Billy. Bernard. Barry? No. That's the other guy.
That's it.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders. That was the guy. He was running for president. And there was this narrative that was being pushed for months that he couldn't win. He couldn't win the general. This was Hillary Clinton's election. It was her time. Bernie Sanders could not win. Come on, it wasn't even a possibility. And then what happened? He started to win. He started to get more support. He started to win caucuses and primaries.
That gap started to close.
Yeah, started to close. Now, he ultimately lost the Democratic nomination. But, of course, one can assume that was at the hands of the Democratic elite and the establishment, the insiders, for them putting their thumb on the scale, just like in Colorado here. So Tillman could win. Yeah, Tillman could win. He could win the race if he actually had a fair chance, because his ideas are popular, just like Bernie Sanders' ideas were popular and still are right now.
Oh.
But they're not popular within the Democratic establishment, though.
So I guess the Democratic, Party's narrative is that they'll do better in the general election. But of course, they're gonna get to the general election if,
of course,
if you give someone a push, they're gonna make it to that general election a little easier. How come they just left that out? Yeah. It was kind of funny that Hoyer kind of said that because Nancy Pelosi was asked about this interaction too, and as soon as you said general election, this was like, oh snap! I was like, wait a second, didn't Nancy Pelosi say that? And she did. Her, comments in response to this audio being released was, I don't know that a person can tape a person without the person's consent and then release it to the press. In terms of candidates and campaigns, I don't see anything inappropriate in what Mr. Hoyer was engaged in. A conversation about the realities of life in the race as to who can make the general election.
You know who can make the general election? Whoever you push
Whoever
along.
you push along. Exactly. But
especially in a state race. Especially in a congressional race it's mostly a state race. I mean, you're going to get your support in that state.
She's acting like that has nothing to do with their candidate making the general election. That's the funny part of it. It's like they are like almost like setting everything up behind the scenes and then boasting about how fair it is. Or about how logical it is. We're just trying to promote somebody that's going to win the general election.
But yeah, exactly. Like, who are you to determine who's going to win or who can win in the general election? We just threw it back to Bernie Sanders back in 2015. Nobody thought he could get any momentum or enough support to even challenge Queen Bee. Right? Nobody thought that, right? The media wasn't behind them. The Bernie blackout, no coverage whatsoever. No, I mean, it didn't matter that his crowds were in the thousands. Didn't matter.
The registration being before the debate.
Yeah, before the first debate. This didn't matter because the narrative was that Hillary Clinton was already the nominee. It was just a formality at this point.
So have they learned anything?
They haven't learned a damn thing because we're 3 years later now. We have this on audio recording now. The number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives is on microphone, on audio, saying that, hey, this is just the way we do business. We put our thumbs on the scales.
And Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. And said there was nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. It's just, the reality, as she put it.
What we saw at least one article online trying to
justify
this and rationalize this as like, ask him the question, is it really that bad for party insiders or the party leadership to pick their candidates, or I guess to pick the candidate that they're going to push forward? The simple answer to that is yes. Yes, it is bad for a number of reasons, but let's just start with, how about it's contrary to what the Democratic it's contrary to what the Democratic Party says that they do. They say that they are neutral when it comes to elections between Democrats. Hey, you Democrats just duke it out, and whoever emerges, we're going to put all our support behind you.
Well, remember,
but that's not true.
Well, I think I can't remember. Yeah, The Intercept. They didn't just do a stale release of this audio. It was accompanied with like other commentary,
right.
like the clip that I saw on the internet's YouTube video. It showed Barack Obama. Did you see that? Where Barack Obama was talking about individuals getting involved in government and running. If you want to see change, you get out there and run, like exercise your rights, like be involved in this democracy, come from the grassroots, challenge the system. He was saying all of that stuff, and I'm just like,
and this was the president of the United States in the Democratic Party.
So again, if he was saying that, but yet we still are witnessing situations like this, what does that tell you about his words? He was just pump faking.
Yes, he was.
He was just saying it because it sounded good. But
because that's the same thing Bernie Sanders was saying too.
Exactly, because it's not about me, it's about y'all. So we got to start a revolution. So it's about the people. So the people have to get involved in the political process.
But when they get
in there,
squash. Sorry, you're not ready for this yet. Look at your platform. It's way too left. Clean that up. It's crazy, man. Man, look.
Like we are. It's like they have determined that they are the litmus test for what left is.
Exactly, man. Like you don't get to choose who's best for the people. Like the people. Like if you're gonna give us the right to vote, what good is that if we don't actually choose from among the candidates that are actually running? Like, I know that it's everybody's responsibility to do their research into candidates. You know, find out who's running, do your research, and, you know, make an informed decision. Well, that just ain't reality, okay? Most people do not do that research. Most people look at CNN or MSNBC or possibly their local paper, possibly, probably not, but they receive the information. They don't go out looking for it. You know, they go to a website, they see the information. Hey, this is who's running my area. Okay, that's it. Now, is Tillman going to have the funds to actually reach all these other voters when he's being suppressed by the Democratic Party? Absolutely not. So all these other voters, the majority of voters that don't go looking for other candidates that might be running the Democratic Party, they're only going to see one of them, and that dude's name is Crow, who's being pushed by the Democratic Party's elite.
So, okay, so now you're...
So they really only have one option, right?
Well, yeah, but now you're getting into something else. You know what I'm saying? All you're talking about now is the Democratic Party not necessarily choosing candidates for them, but exploiting voters' inability to seek out information. So it's more about exploitation rather than just them limiting the visibility of progressive candidates and then increasing the visibility of their own party chosen candidates. Seems as if it's, you know, the voters, the constituency is partially to blame for not thinking that there are other options and being exploited.
But see, anybody that pays attention to politics knows that reality. They know that there's at least like 100 million people every year, or well, in every general presidential election at least, that don't vote. If you're talking about state races, man, I mean, like the people that did vote in the presidential election, there's a lot of them that don't vote in these state races. So there's millions upon millions of people all throughout this nation that do not regularly vote, do not regularly dive into like the backgrounds of candidates. The Democratic Party knows that. They rely on that information to say...
Both parties know that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, these parties know that, and they say, here are your candidates. We think they're best for you. You're not doing the research, so we're going to put all our money behind them.
Either get ranch Doritos or nacho Doritos, and that's it.
Tried and true, man. Tried and true.
Those are your choices.
We don't need political parties, man. Upon reading this story and just thinking about it, I'm thinking to myself, like, why exactly do we actually need political parties? Because because of what happened in 2016, of course, there are many people that don't feel like they can back the Democratic Party anymore or even vote for a Democratic politician, no matter what their platform is, even if it's progressive. There's no good logic in having political parties, because being a Democrat means what? Being a Republican means what?
Well, we've already like this subject matter, being a Republican means what and being a Democrat means what, kind of comes up when we talk about how the party shifted after the Civil Rights Act was passed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That should kind of show that it's more about
changes.
It's more about ideology.
That's right. But see, who you are as a person, like whatever you think is right, you bring that to the table. Now, if we're talking about protecting people from being discriminated upon, if we're talking about criminal justice reform or health care or climate change or the military, whatever the issue is, I have my set of ideas. I have my own ideology. If that matches up with this other person, then I guess if it's something that we can both support, then we'll both support this legislation.
Okay,
I don't need to be a Democrat. You don't need to be a Democrat or a Republican or whatever else. We just need to believe the same way.
So what is it on the other side, though? Like, what's the other side of that if you're not going to, I guess, isolate yourself to voting for a party because you're just a loyalist? If you're kind of abandoning that, which most people have, what's the other side of that? Do you remain consistent and say, well, the other side of that is I can vote for somebody who is a Democrat or Republican if they match up with like I guess my platform and my beliefs. Can you say that on the other end? Like, I'm not going to be a party loyalist, but I'm not going to just completely write off somebody because they have a D or R beside their name.
Well, that's the way it should be. I mean, that's the way it should be. Unfortunately, if you are a Democrat or Republican, there are different ideologies like that separates the two. Now, in most cases, I mean, there are issues where they're like right smack dab in the middle, but I just the only way we get to a point where we don't rely on political parties is if we are informed, if we are informing ourselves, because we rely on these parties to do all the background information, you know, we think they're diving into who these prospects are, these candidates are, and actually giving us the best. They're not. We are lazy. Well, you know what? I won't even say all of us are lazy. There are some of us that are lazy and don't do the work, but there are some of us that are just overworked and don't have time to do it themselves.
That's true, and I think a lot of it has to do with apathy, and that apathy is kind of related to how people view the United States of America. You know, like, if you come into the conversation saying like this is the best country in the world, even though we don't rank the highest in some of the most important areas. If you come into the conversation saying America is the greatest, America is this, America represents that, you know, so if it's kind of the electorate has a very I don't know, like a very unrealistic view of where we are as a country, why would they take the time to inform themselves? So I think it's a combination of laziness and apathy, and maybe maybe suffering from false illusions about where we are as a country. You know what I'm saying? How great we are. You know what I'm saying? Our exceptionalism actually creates kind of this attitude where maybe we don't feel the need to inform ourselves as much as we should. Like,
this train is already rolling. It's rolling good.
It's rolling good. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's almost like I hate to even suggest this, but it's almost like it's nothing wrong with, you know, having, you know, kind of a positive outlook, you know, for the country. But when it prevents people from like seeing the massive flaws, then it becomes detrimental. So you have too many people out here who are like, you know, I'm just going to just trust a Republican or a Democrat because, like you said, this train is chugging along nicely.
Right.
So why would I need to inform myself? Why would I need to dig deeper? Mugs don't dig deeper until like shit really starts to get bad.
So we need that zombie apocalypse. Yeah, that's what we
told
need
you
to actually change something.
See, now you're coming around.
Look, I need a guaranteed method of defeating these zombies, though. Guaranteed, man. I don't get snuck up on nothing like that. All right. As long as I can, you know, get past these, and they better be slow moving too.
Oh, you like the George R. Romero?
Exactly.
Them zombies. I love them zombies. We just run circles around them.
I don't want like the remember the
oh hell no! 28 days later.
No,
exactly. World War Z.
Yeah,
them zombies.
I'm talking about Resident Evil too.
Hell no.
I don't want none of that, man.
No.
I think it was Resident Evil 2, man. You couldn't even get past those zombies. Man.
That was like. People, like, your friends will warn you, yo, dog, don't play that game after 12 o'clock. Like, don't play that game after dark.
Yo, as soon as it got dark, I was like, nah, if somebody's not in the room with me, I'm going to cut this thing off, man.
That game had a curfew.
Yeah, man.
That game had a curfew.
Straight up.
How we go from talking about Democrats.
That's what we need, because we need the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, exactly. Zombies. It's all connected. It's all connected, man. Anyway, all right, we're gonna go on with the rest of the show, but we're gonna do that just on YouTube. So that means your time is up on Facebook. We have the link in the description, so we hope that you do join us for the rest of the show. Next thing we're going to be talking about is good old corruption within Sacramento. Good old corruption, money in politics.
But see, it's not money in politics in the traditional sense that we talk about.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Oh, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
Same results.
Same results. Man.
So please join us. We will see you there in just a few minutes, or just a minute.
By Facebook. All right.
All right. You cannot make adults become lifelong learners.
Dang. Don't. Oh man, that's an ugh statement right there. That junk hits me though, because once you get past a certain point,
change is hard.
Change is hard. I don't think it's like impossible. I will not say that. I never say change is impossible. I've seen people make actually significant changes at the age of like 60.
Yeah, because there's always something that can cause that change.
But it's just like I don't know, like I guess your belief system and your attitude is no different than weight gain. The longer you wait to kind of lose it or change it, the harder it is to lose it or change it.
Right.
So yeah, it cuts down on the percentage of success.
yeah. The longer you don't maintain it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you got some 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds who have a particular attitude, most likely.
Yeah.
That junk ain't going away.
Yeah, they're staying right where they are.
That junk ain't going away.
All right. Ooh, make sure that TV don't fall. All right. All right. Everything's good. Everything's good. What's up, Gene? What's up, Ninja? Oh, nothing that seems is born in Sacramento. So this will be
Sac.
Very familiar to you.
Sacktown.
All right. Where is this joint at? All right. So Anne Marie Schubert is the District of Sacramento, California, and she is something of an anomaly. In a very liberal city, Sacramento, California, Schubert is a Republican, and she has a very prominent position as the district attorney. The mayor is a Democrat, as well as the past mayor. The U.S. Congress member for the district is Doris Matsui. She's a Democrat. And also the state representative for the district is a Democrat as well. So whenever I see that there's a Republican in a liberal city, or even if it's the other way around, if there's a Democrat in a town full of Republicans, it kind of gets me thinking like, okay,
how did that person?
Yeah.
How was that person able to kind of overcome
the odds?
The stigma that's going to be attached to your party automatically if you're in a district that has an electorate that's opposite to that.
That's the automatic thought that's in my head. Like, you obviously had a very large support system. You had to have in an area that is dominated by Democratic thinking, and you're a Republican, and you're the top prosecutor in the city. Like, you had to have some support that was so extensive, so large, so influential.
Wait, when you say support, I mean, what, she couldn't just have a good platform?
A good platform. Maybe if she was an independent. Okay. Being a Republican, I doubt it. So we're going to go to an article that was in The Intercept detailing Anne Marie Schubert. And it talks about her campaigns. So it says, for the 3 campaigns she has raised money for, a short-lived California Superior Court judge race and 2 races for district attorney, Schubert has taken in well over $1 million in disclosed contributions, according to news reports and California campaign contribution databases. Of that money, about $420,000 came from law enforcement groups or people associated with law enforcement, including $200,000 in loans from a former official with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, A law enforcement association's political action committee also independently spent more than $50,000 on the first campaign for district attorney. That brings the total amount of law enforcement cash spent on Schubert's election efforts to around $470,000. Now, just to note how much money that is, I mean, just the $470,000 from law enforcement groups spent on her campaign is a preposterous amount of money for a state race. Actually, it's not even a state race. It's a city race. It's a local election. That is an astounding amount of money for people that are trying to become the next U.S. representative for their district. Some of them may, go into the $1 million, $2 million, something like that. But for a local election, that is a huge amount of money. And then when you take in the rest of the money, up to $1 million just for a local election, this is a tremendous sum of money. So, noting that much cash came from law enforcement groups, would it surprise anybody to learn that Schubert has not been inclined to file charges for police officers, especially police officers that have been involved in shootings and killings of citizens and in the deaths of people in law enforcement or if they're in police custody? Would it surprise anybody to know that she does not file charges against police officers?
Oh, she has.
She doesn't.
She has almost a $450,000 incentive not to. I mean, I guess we
470.
For my bad, 470.
You forgot the other 20.
470.
I know it's hard to, it's probably hard to keep track of all them thousands, that change, them greenbacks. But yeah, 20 more. Just add that on the pile.
So, people who are watching this show, they probably have a job. They work somewhere. I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
What if you found out that your boss or your GM or your, the head supervisor, was giving money to the company's loss prevention resource officer? Would that be a red flag? The boss of that store location, the GM, found out that they were paying the loss prevention officer, the person that is in charge of making sure that no one is stealing in any kind of way.
Right. Well,
what would that tell you?
If you found that out, you might suspect that maybe that GM is involved in some criminal behavior.
And he's paying the loss prevention person off
to keep silent,
to cover it up, or to just look
the other way. Right.
Otherwise, why would you do that? You don't do that if you're like performing your job with some kind of integrity and you have nothing to hide, or you don't feel liable for something.
Right.
Like, why would you need to buy off a loss prevention resource officer? Why would you need to buy off a DA? Why would you need to be in the DA's pocket if everything you do is on the up and up? I understand that they want to form a relationship with the district attorneys. That's different.
Because this is law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
They're connected.
You can do that without money, though. You can form relationships without money.
Right.
But this kind of looks like bribery to me. Because, I mean, DAs are supposed to be performing their job and acting on behalf of the community, right?
They should be impartial, really. They're just acting for justice.
They're supposed to be exactly. They're supposed to seek justice in all cases,
right? And no matter who's.
And sometimes,
what side of the table.
Prosecuting police officers is necessary for the community and necessary to, I guess, see that justice takes place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but like I stated, in cases of police shootings, killings,
specifically,
and when there's deaths of people that are in police custody, the Sacramento News and Review, they noted that since Schubert took office in 2015, the district attorney's office has declined to file charges in 21 shootings involving police, also in 13 cases where people died in police custody. Since she's taken office, she says there's just not enough evidence. I don't think so.
I mean, you know what's kind of
not going forward here.
There's a lot of things obscuring that evidence. You know what I'm saying? Like if I got so much, cash raining down on me, if cash is just raining down on my head, it's gonna be hard for me to see. It's gonna be hard for me to see.
Kind of like a euphoric effect or something.
I wasn't going that route. I was mainly like going like the Scrooge McDuck route.
Yeah, still, he gets hypnotized by that sometimes.
The money falling is blocking their vision from seeing like injustices take place.
Right, and so Sacramento. Okay, so we have to note that Sacramento just recently, that was the city where Stephon Clark was, right? And he was shot. Officers shot him 10 times. Yeah, they each fired their weapon 10 times.
They emptied their clips, and I think both of them had 10 rounds.
That's right. And so in that case, which we saw the video, we saw even the helicopter video, and we don't think it was a proper shoot. We think justice was not done in that case. So there was an independent autopsy conducted at the request of the family, now those results were released. Now the state did its own autopsy, of course, like they always do. Those results have not been released as of yet. It's been a minute now. It's been quite a minute.
A month. It's been a month.
It's been a while, and no results, no nothing. They haven't. Nobody's been arrested. I mean, these officers. No. I mean, the district attorney has
internal investigation.
No, district attorney has pretty much been mum. No, silent. Hasn't really said anything. Now, there was a case before this too that was, what was it, about 2 years ago, I believe? It was Joseph Mann.
The dude who they tried to run over.
That's right.
And they ended up shooting him like 12 or 14 times, and he was unarmed. He was like running away with a knife. And they they chased him and just gunned him down.
Yep.
He was running away from them. He didn't want nothing to do with them.
Yep.
I understand he had mental issues.
Yeah.
So yes, they didn't want him to harm anybody, but he wasn't harming anybody.
No.
They just wanted to, get him in custody, and probably forward him on to like a mental health institution to get treatment. Probably what they were thinking about doing, but how they went about it was they pretty much was trying to hit him, and there was audio from
the patrol car
that pretty much said, like, go ahead, do it.
Yeah, one of the officers said, fuck this guy. I'm going to hit him.
Go ahead, do it.
And then the other ones, go ahead, do it.
Do it, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think, they tried. But
and then once they got him, like, against a building,
right,
they kind of cornered him, and they just started unloading on him.
Now, the officer said that he lunged at them. But
you were in your car.
Yeah, and I believe that there was an investigation as well too. It could have been the officers that actually shot him that said that, but there was I believe the investigation found that his feet were planted at the time. So and from what we saw on the video too, there was no evidence that he actually lunged at him. But if he did have a knife, okay, let's say this dude is a threat, right? First, like we say this in every single case, right? Like, why are you like getting right up on somebody that you think is dangerous and that you think your life is in danger?
You're putting yourself in a position where your only option is to shoot somebody. Right.
And we saw, I mean, like this has been going on for a while. Like, I mean, like, they were following this guy for a while. Are you telling me none of these officers had any tasers or any rubber bullets or any shields or anything?
And they knew what
he had. They didn't have any other tactic but a fatal gunshot. They had nothing else.
And they were fully aware of what weapon he had, which was a knife. You heard it over the audio. They knew it was a knife. He didn't have a gun.
Yep.
So they weren't engaging somebody that could cause them like a deadly injury immediately.
But they still, the district attorney, led by Schubert, still declined to press charges against officers. So that case is done. I mean, there's no justice in that case.
Like the political climate, like I guess right now, like what's heavy in the political climate, I guess for both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, centers around money and politics, and that being the main corrupting agent. Money to corporations, money from corporations to representatives, which amount to bribes. So what's this? What's this about? What's this about? Wouldn't that be about the same thing?
It is about the same thing. That's it. So actually, in Sacramento, she's not the only Republican, though. All right. So the sheriff in Sacramento is a Republican as well. His name is Sheriff Scott Jones. So Scott Jones is very friendly with Schubert. He endorsed her for district attorney, and she publicized his endorsement. I believe she had. I believe she had like the yard, her signs in her yard with like his endorsement of her, at her home. Also, they appeared at each other's kickoff events, their own campaign kickoff events. So again, these two have a relationship and they back each other. So this is again from The Intercept. On December 19, 2017, California State Auditor Elaine Howell sent a letter to Schubert urging her to prosecute Jones, the sheriff of Sacramento County. Jones, according to the auditor, who serves in a watchdog capacity, had committed a misdemeanor offense by deliberately releasing information that he was specifically told he could not release, despite multiple verbal and written warnings. So you would think that this would have been a very good opportunity, or I guess the exact situation for somebody like Schubert, who has a relationship with Jones, to recuse herself from this situation. Now, there's some added information about the relationship between these two as well. So there's a PAC called Friends of Sheriff Scott Jones that has also donated to her campaigns, to Schubert's campaigns. The union for Jones's department is one of her largest single financial contributors to her campaign. So again, with knowing all of this, with all of this knowledge, this is the exact place where somebody that has a conflict of interest says that I can't be objective here, or at least if I think I can be, nobody's going to believe that I'm actually objective. I'm going to bow out here. She didn't. She declined to prosecute or file any charges on him.
Why are you acting like you're surprised by her decision? you knew that was going to go down. But I just think that it's interesting. Now you're talking about all these police groups and police organizations and police unions contributing this money to this DA. Because the narrative is that most cops are good.
That's the narrative.
All right. I'm willing to believe that's true. I'm willing to believe that most cops are good. But what this illustrates is that the good cops are okay with contributing tons of money to a prosecutor that never prosecutes bad cops.
You went too far, man.
Just saying.
There's also some more information as well, too. It's as if there needed to be more information. But in April, just last month, there was a Sacramento police union that filed a disclosure for an in-kind donation. The amount was $3,187.67. The form stated it was for rent, internet, and electricity. One would assume that this is probably for her campaign office, right? Like campaign headquarters, probably.
But why was it sent from them?
They're interested in her keeping the lights on.
Keeping the lights on.
Yeah,
maybe that's what I was talking about at the beginning about forming good relationships. That's how you form good relationships. Yeah. You pay their light bill,
internet. Make sure they have internet access.
Sure internet bill. Yeah. So it actually is. I guess you can classify this as an act of benevolence, active benevolence, and compassion, and just looking after your DA. You don't want your DA not to have internet. You don't want your DA not to be watching Netflix. But you don't want that. You got to keep the refrigerator on too.
But okay, again, so all this money that is coming in from law enforcement groups to propel Schubert forward and propel her to a win to become the district attorney and to propel her to re-election as well. Okay, let's say, that's they believe in her. They're forming good relationships, right? But now now you're saying that they are also behind keeping her office afloat, like keeping her in the building, making sure that she has a campaign on.
Maybe she don't make enough, dude. Maybe she just doesn't make enough.
But let's say that's true. Let's say we don't know her expenses. Let's say that's true. What's the chances that the district attorney, whose utilities are being paid for by law enforcement groups, what's the chances that she would ever come to a decision that's against them?
What they were trying to do was mask a bribe or a direct contribution, a contribution that would create a conflict of interest. They were trying to mask it by doing something that didn't look as suspicious, but in turn it still looks suspicious and it still creates a conflict of interest. Like you said,
it's the benevolent act.
Yeah. So you can't even say it because you don't believe it.
Get tripped up, man.
But see, you know what I'm saying? So either way, it still creates that same level of conflict of interest, even though it's done in a very underhanded way to make it look as if it's, I guess, nothing behind it. Because that's what they were trying to do, obviously.
See, this is why money in politics is so dangerous, okay? Now, we have most politicians that I believe will have some comment to make about how, money in politics is very dangerous, and that's why we're upfront with who is donating to our campaigns, and we that list is public, and we want to put that information out there. We believe in a clean campaign. That doesn't mean clean. Like the story we did just before this with in Colorado with Tillman and Crow. I looked at Crow's website, and Crow was talking about he wants to repeal Citizens United. He was challenging the Republican incumbent to not accept corporate money, I believe, and to make dark money, don't accept dark money, dark secret money, and just be very transparent about who's funding your campaigns. It doesn't matter if you're transparent about it, because we know the voters, that information, it's not as important as it should be. It's just not. There are a lot of us that know that these contributions come with strings. Anybody that's doing any kind of real thinking, real assessment of the situation, that these groups are not just paying these candidates because they like them. They like them for a reason. They like them because they know they're going to have their back when the time calls for it.
Is it going to change how they vote simply because that information is public or they're transparent about it? Will that change anything about the decisions they make?
Because what they're going to say is the same thing Hillary Clinton would say. I'm not bought. I'm not affected by this money. I can do exactly. I said Ricky Rubio. Marco Rubio says the same thing as well. He says the same thing. Remember when he was up on that stage after the Parkland shooting? He said the same thing. I do what I want. The NRA doesn't speak for me. I can make decisions for myself. It's all bullshit, man. We know there's strings attached.
They think because they exposing the strings that kind of makes them not attached. I don't know.
There's no reciprocal action. I take this money and that's it.
They know. They already know the information is out there. They already know that there are enough people looking for that information. My favorite website is Open Secrets. So they already know people are searching for that kind of information, so they're trying to get ahead of it.
Right.
But in trying to get ahead of it, their rationalizations still come off nonsensical because it doesn't really reflect their actual position on things, and they're still going to make the same decisions.
Same damn decisions, man. with the same damn strings, man. All right, let's go to the CFPB. All right. The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is responsible for protecting consumers and advocating on their behalf. This is usually done to protect consumers from large corporations, their activities like predatory lending or misuse or abuse of their personal information. Their latest complaint against Wells Fargo, one of the world's largest banks, essentially labels them as thieves. So this is from the Huffington Post. The company forcibly... Okay, so this is how the CFPB described Wells Fargo's actions. The company forcibly placed duplicative or unnecessary insurance on hundreds of thousands of vehicles owned by customers who had taken out a car loan with the bank. This not only resulted in a typical charge of over $1,000 to which these customers had never agreed, but for at least 27,000 customers, the Bureau wrote, the additional cost of the forced-placed insurance could have contributed to a default that resulted in the repossession of their vehicle.
So essentially increased the amount of their monthly payments.
Yes. And of course, there were many of these borrowers that couldn't afford those monthly payments and their cars got repossessed. So there was due to this and some other things, there was a settlement that was arranged and negotiated upon. The CFPB came to that agreement with Wells Fargo, and the bank estimates that it'll pay out $182 million to affected car loan borrowers. Now that's part of the larger settlement that actually totals to $1 billion when you add in the improper mortgage tactics. So here you have Wells Fargo again engaged in some very, very, I can't say it's reckless.
Because reckless would suggest that
it was kind of a mistake.
Like they kind of didn't see certain things going on.
Right.
Not that they ignored it, but they didn't see it and they just caught it.
They didn't have safeguards in place.
Kind of like the whole Equifax thing.
Right. No, this was purposeful. This was to dupe people out of money and to like the CFPB said, this was to steal cars.
Because they get repossessed.
Exactly. So not only do they get the monthly payments, they get to repossess the cars and then sell them.
Car gets sold again.
Exactly. It's crazy. So anyway, so this is a good thing, of course, because this is a good thing that the CFPB is there to catch large corporations that are taking advantage of consumers in this way. But now there is an effort in Congress to kind of limit the jurisdiction of the CFPB. So there are some congressional Democrats that are joining Republicans on this initiative. It would strip the CFPB of the power to bring cases just like the one that is settled with Wells Fargo. It's authored by Representative Sean Duffy, who's a Republican from Wisconsin. He's one of the Bureau's most, I guess he goes at them. He goes after him. He has the most negative things to say about the CFPB.
Bulldog.
Yeah, he's a bulldog when it comes to CFPB. So it has the backing. This bill has the backing of Representative Gwen Moore, who's a Democrat from Wisconsin, and Senator Tammy Baldwin, who is a Democrat from Wisconsin as well. Now, if you notice, all those three, Duffy, Moore, and Baldwin, they're all from Wisconsin. Now, what's different about Moore and Baldwin are, they claim to be progressives. But they're siding with Sean Duffy, who is absolutely not a progressive or even a centrist Republican, on an initiative that will limit the ability of the CFPB to actually act on the behalf of consumers in cases just like this.
I wouldn't even define it as siding with Duffy. Because if we're just looking at it for the issue that it is, It's them kind of signing off and being in support of kind of gutting the CFPB in a way that would, make them or make the agency inconsequential.
Well,
and it's
further gut.
Further gut.
Because the acting director now, Mick
Mulvaney.
Mulvaney, you remember at the beginning of the new fiscal year, you remember he was like, yeah, we're good. We don't need any money. Trying to go after corporations that are doing consumers dirty. We don't need any money. Nah.
He basically said the CFPB is actually, he said it hurts corporations.
Mm-hmm. And he's the acting director of this bureau that acts on behalf of consumers, not corporations.
So it's now called the corporation.
The
Corporation Protection Bureau.
Exactly. You can just drop the F.
You can drop that. Yeah, it's corporation.
The CPB.
The CPB, Corporation Protection Bureau.
So Senator Baldwin, a staffer in her office said, quote, "This legislation does not strip or change the agency's authority to enforce compliance when an insurer offers CFPB covered products." She said the bill simply clarifies that the CFPB's role is to enforce consumer protection laws and also reaffirms existing law on state-based regulation of insurance by state insurance offices and commissioners. CFPB retains the oversight authority being used in its enforcement action against Wells Fargo, which Senator Baldwin has strongly opposed. Now, this is per the Huffington Post. The legislation would deny the CFPB jurisdiction over companies that are subject to state insurance regulation that also engage in offering or providing a consumer financial product or service. For such firms, which include essentially every major bank, the Bureau would lose its authority to the extent such company is engaged in the business of insurance. State insurance regulators, which have a much weaker record of consumer protection enforcement, would replace the CFPB. So, I'm confused here. I'm confused. We already know what the CFPB is there for. Correct?
Correct.
So tell me why Senator Baldwin has to join a bill, promote a bill, support a bill to, what she say? This is to clarify the CFPB's role? Why do we need to clarify their role? Like, they did a good thing here with Wells Fargo, did they not? You're trying to limit their ability, or actually you're trying to kill their ability to actually bring a similar case forward to protect consumers.
Oh, so yeah, she wants to bring a different kind of clarity.
Different,
you know what I'm saying?
A different kind of clarity.
She wants to bring a different kind of clarity.
Okay. What kind of clarity? What kind of clarity?
That they don't want the CFPB to have teeth. That's the kind of clarity.
But that's not a progressive position. That's not a progressive position at all.
That's why she used the word clarity, because you don't have a position. Well, the position you have is bad. That's why you just say clarity, because you just use that term as a cover-up for what's really going down. And now that there's going to be banks that essentially don't even have to follow the rules because they don't fall under the jurisdiction. And
right.
The agency that does have jurisdiction, they already know that they don't have the manpower or the resources to go after these banks.
Bernie Birnbaum, who is the executive director for the Center for Economic Justice, he called the bill outrageous. He said, with the exception of a few states, the record of state regulators on this is terrible. Wells Fargo force-placed some 800,000 policies erroneously. No insurance regulator caught that. Who did catch it? The CFPB. So if state insurance regulators missed the ball here, like, it just, man, I didn't even realize that was happening, man. And the CFPB, through the efforts of that bureau, they caught it. And they actually said, man, what's going on here is an abuse of the system. This large corporation, this large bank is mistreating people. They're getting over on people. They're actually stealing cars and selling them. We got to do something about this. And there's an effort in Congress to be like, And now we don't want you doing this anymore. Nah, you've exceeded your authority. Sorry. Do something else.
So would this be
It's miraculous, man.
So would this be an instance of the swamp not being drained? Would this be another instance of the swamp not being drained? And actually, again, the swamp getting swampier.
The swamp is swallowing everything, man. The How can you drain a swamp with a swamp?
That's the thing. It's not being drained. It's just being more mucky and just more gunk being piled on top of the swamp.
It's amazing, man. But that noting that there is Democratic support for this, I don't know, man. I'd say it's probably likely to get passed, man. And like you said, this was just going to further gut the CFPB and their role in actually protecting consumers. That isn't, I guess, until 2020, possibly. Maybe. We'll see.
You'll see a lot of fraud going on. If fraud is already occurring, and banks like Wells Fargo are already having to shell out $1 billion in penalties, and this is with rules in place.
This is with rules in place. Again,
yo, I got you. You're like, whoa. Yeah, I mean,
if there's no rules in place, it's gonna be a field day, right?
It's going to be a field year. It's not a field day. It's
so they ain't got no teeth. They ain't got no financial backing to actually go after these people either. Mm-hmm. So who's gonna be there? Who's gonna be there?
There's gonna be nobody there. There's gonna be nobody there. And do we expect them to regulate themselves? Again, they can't regulate themselves when there are rules in place. So think about how they're going to go forth now that there are no rules. There are no, there's no checks and balances. There's no body that has, no agency that really has any real authority over them now. So it can get real bad real fast considering all the other stuff that is going on with this administration.
I don't think this would have happened under I'm not gonna say that name. I'm gonna make it very general.
Yeah.
Under a Democratic president. I'm not saying that name. I'm not saying that name. I'm just saying under a Democratic president, I don't think this would be happening.
About to cause it shitstorm, dog. You know that name.
Oh yeah.
Like literally. Yeah, I said literally.
Oh yeah.
Creates tornadoes. Literally, yes, it does.
No, I'm not. Literally. That wasn't even in my head. Not even in my head, man. But yeah, even with and this is why it's all fake, man. Because Tammy Baldwin, she describes herself as a progressive, right? If this was a Democratic president that was in office, do you think she would have had? Do you think she would have signed on to it? I don't think so. That's why I know that there's no integrity in votes.
Well, Gene doesn't think so. But again, like you gotta look at this situationally and look what states or what districts they represent. Yeah. And so when you're looking at why they're siding with an issue, it could be, for the most part, them getting reelected. So they're going to side with a Republican if it's contingent upon them getting reelected. So there is something to be said that they may not have voted this way, or it may not have slipped through the cracks if Obama was here. I'm not like giving Obama big ups, but we can't be sure about that. We can't be sure. I can't be sure. No. But we still have to look at who's in power.
I mean, it was under Obama that the CFPB was enacted.
Yeah. It wouldn't make sense. And like I said, this is kind of situational. We have Democrats kind of crossing the aisle for the most part, only because there are certain states, right? So they would not have the same, I guess, desperation. They wouldn't have the same desperation.
That's what I mean.
You see what I'm saying? So the desperation wouldn't have been the same if Hillary was there. Damn it, I said it.
You see, wasn't me. Wasn't me.
I'm just saying the desperation wouldn't have been there.
Thunderstorm.
I know, right? We would have had a whole host of other issues to criticize President Hillary on.
Right.
We would have had a whole. We would have had a plethora of issues.
He's trying to save himself.
But that wouldn't have been it. Man, you started it, man.
I did not say that. I said that. But I'm saying, like, think about if you had a President Bernie Sanders or something like that, right?
That sounds better.
Yeah, that sounds better. But if you had somebody like that was actually calling on the nation to change the political environment, to actually advocate for things that better all of us, right? It would be harder for politicians, especially Democratic politicians, to sign on for junk like this.
Yeah, because, especially in areas that, Bernie won.
Exactly.
You're just looking at it if it was a different reality.
Didn't he win Wisconsin in the primaries? I believe he did.
I think he did.
And these fools are from Wisconsin. All right. Let's go. Let's go to the term limits.
Term limits.
All right. So, President Donald Trump recently met with a bipartisan group of freshman Congress members, and he talked with them about term limits. Now, as you can remember, during the campaign trail, then candidate Donald Trump did talk about doing something about congressional, term limits and actually setting those. He thought it was, he said it was important to do so. So this was the tweet that he, put out there just yesterday, on Monday. He said, I recently had a terrific meeting with a bipartisan group of freshman lawmakers who feel very strongly in favor of congressional term limits. I gave them my full support and endorsement for their efforts. Hashtag drain the swamp. Couldn't leave that out. Drain the swamp.
Like the gesture, but it's empty coming from him. It's empty coming from him. I like the gesture.
Yeah.
Term limits, but it's empty coming from him.
There's been so much talk about term limits. We've talked about term limits. Of course, we want to see term limits because what I believe is that when you don't have term limits, what motivates these Congress members? Staying in office, staying in power, keeping that money coming.
Yeah, if they know their positions are guaranteed and they have nothing to worry about, they're never in a desperate position to serve their constituency.
Exactly. And I remember in 2016, we did a segment on, I believe it was I don't know if it was a CBS report or I think it was a CBS report, talking about the amount of time that these Congress members
spend
lobbying for money
and
on the phone,
fundraising.
Yeah, fundraising. Yeah, they got a little booth.
They got a little
cubicle.
They got a cubicle. They got a little chart that shows who's raised the most. It's like a little progress chart.
Exactly.
And so everybody want their name at the top. This is how much money you raised.
They're telemarketers
for their party. That's
exactly
basically what they work at a call center.
And if they're not there, actually on the phone, what are they doing? They're rubbing elbows trying to get money for their campaigns or for the party or whatever.
Little posh fundraisers
exactly.
and galas.
Yeah, galas, yeah. So much time and effort is spent just on fundraising because they want to stay relevant. They want to stay in Congress. So, of course.
So the concept of term limits.
Right.
It's pretty sound.
Yes, it is.
The concept.
The concept is sound.
But, do you have any, I don't know, any arguments against term limits? Not necessarily against term limits, but against term limits without doing anything about this political system we have now. Will it actually have an impact?
Well, me, personally, no. I'm for term limits.
Right.
You're for term limits.
Yes, sir.
Now everybody isn't though, and we have seen members of the media, we have seen many articles that have tried to make the case that term limits
are a bad thing.
Are a very bad idea, very bad proposition, and Trump, he's out of his mind. He doesn't even know how politics works, right? So there's one article that's on Bloomberg.com. It's entitled "Reminder: Term Limits Are Still a Bad Idea," and it's written by Jonathan Bernstein. So this is a little excerpt from that article. The U.S. is a large, complicated nation. It requires expertise to write laws for such a nation. Anyone can have good ideas, but it takes some real knowledge to turn them into laws. If members of Congress are only to serve for a short time, then they're going to turn elsewhere for that expertise. Where? Lobbyists are happy to write laws if Congress will let them. Term-limited legislators would inevitably turn to one of those choices, and neither lobbyists nor federal bureaucrats are term-limited, nor are they likely to be interested in the particular circumstances of any member's constituency.
Wait a second.
I about lost myself.
He's like suggesting that there will be a reality if we do enact term limits, and the reality that he said would come about is a reality that already exists.
This dude said, if we only have legislators in place for a few select years at a time, that's all they can actually serve, a few years, then they're not going to have the wherewithal, they're not going to have the knowledge to actually know how to write legislation. So who's going to fill that void? It's gonna be corporations and lobbyists, man. We don't want that to happen.
Because that doesn't happen now at all. You know?
That's, like, where does this guy live? America? He can't live in America. He can't live in America, right? Because anybody paying attention would know that lobbyists are all over Washington, D.C., and they're currently writing legislation.
Besides that weird and unfounded comment.
Unfounded, yes.
Very unfounded.
Yes.
He wasn't. It's like he was making an argument against term limits. He's just making an argument about qualified individuals being there.
Yes.
That just, you know what I'm saying? And if he was going to make that argument, fine. But that's not the argument he was making. That's what it sounded like. He just wants qualified individuals to be in there. But that doesn't.
He also continued. Okay. He said, while there's no guarantee that legislators will always do a good job of representing their districts, they usually try for the very good reason that their jobs depend on keeping their constituents happy. Term limits remove the election incentive for legislators who have reached their final term and radically devalues it for the rest.
Wait a second.
What?
Wait a second.
He said the opposite of reality.
Exactly. Well, okay. Not just the opposite of reality, the opposite of what a endless term would produce. Like, if the term is endless, that makes the representative value the term less.
Exactly, because they're not in danger of losing their seat.
So he's all backwards.
This dude is trying to sell the idea, essentially, that Congress members are above reproach. Like, they are only interested in doing the right thing
by default
for their constituency. Like, they actually act with integrity.
But I mean, but on the real though, like other than some of the reasons we mentioned,
astounding, man.
About why term limits are a good idea. Think about why we even have this conversation. Why are we even on this topic? The fact that we even have to talk about this. You know what I'm saying? Because if people felt their representatives were, I guess,
actually representing them,
working on their behalf,
yeah.
I think the term limits issue might be a back page story.
We wouldn't care, would we?
Wouldn't we care?
If we knew that politicians actually had our backs, actually were advocating for our best wishes, like what we need as a people, not for what big money needs, not for what the most influential of people need.
Their own needs.
Not selfish purposes. If they actually had our backs, the people that actually got them there, would we care how long they served? No, because they're doing a great job, right? keep him there as long as you want. I don't care.
So the fact that it's even a conversation actually contradicts his position,
right?
Automatically, because if his position was true, then we wouldn't even be having the conversation.
He's acting like he's not cognizant of why this is an issue at all, like why he even has to talk about it. It's not because Trump is bringing it up, because more than Trump brings it up, many people bring it up because it's worth bringing up, because there's a real problem here.
And again, it's like, I thought at first it was one of those like clickbaity type titles, and he was not going to be against term limits, but like maybe because I had an assumption, because I thought the title was so stupid. I was like, no, that can't be a real title. That's just clickbait to get you to read it. He's not gonna like I guess make arguments that term limits are bad. He's just going to say like term limits are only good if these other things take place. That's not what I. That's not what I got.
No, he never made that case.
He never made.
He just
that
said
case.
They're bad.
Yeah,
and mostly because lobbyists will end up writing legislation.
That's my fault. I went into it thinking it was clickbait, but it was actually
real.
It was real
from his vantage point. It was a real offer of his viewpoint.
There was actually bait on the hook. Real bait. Yes. It wasn't fake.
Yes. No, it was not a clickbaity title, man. Like he actually said exactly what that title offered. Yeah.
I mean, like, because again, I can make that argument. Like, term limits are good unless like these other things take place. Term limits don't mean much or have no value unless these other things take place. Because right now we have money in politics. Like, all that's going to be done is the revolving door is going to just be moving a lot quicker.
That can't be the only thing. Term limits can't be the only thing. You have to address money politics as well.
I wish he would have made that argument.
If he made that argument, like, we can't just do that because it won't mean anything. We also have to tackle this and this.
Because where do
you got a point.
Again, and he mentioned lobbyists. Okay, but where do representatives go after they serve?
Like, he doesn't know this? I don't understand, man. Like, again, he's acting like this is some, like, we're living in some false reality where he doesn't understand what's actually happening. Congress members are upstanding members of our political environment.
Lobbyists, for some reason, are non-existent in the construction of legislation right now, in this current reality. That's kind of what he suggested. That's what he was suggesting. He didn't say that, but you know what I'm saying? That's kind of what he suggested.
Yes, that was his exact narrative. But then if he's only talking about like what Trump has said, like when Trump was actually running for president, I believe he said something like for the Senate term, it would be capped at like 2 terms, like 12 years, like 2 Senate terms, 6 years, 12 years. And then for the House, did he say? For the House, yeah, for the House he limited with 6 years. So 3 terms, right? Even if we buy into what this Jonathan Bernstein is talking about, and that it's a bad idea for there to be like just a few number of years that Congress members can serve, 6 years and 12 years is not a few number of years. Like you don't think you don't think they would be able to learn their job in that amount of time? Are you serious? Are you serious? It's not like all of them going to be rookies at the same time.
And see, that's the thing. That's kind of what his argument hinges upon. It's like these mugs just like it's like your entire football team starting lineup just came from high school. That's not how it happens.
No, it's not. It never happens.
D1 entire lineup just got out of high school 2 days ago. Just graduated 2 days ago.
Yeah, this dude has a ridiculous viewpoint, man. I don't understand. John McCain, right? Senator John McCain. He has a new book that's coming out. I don't know if it's out yet, but there's a new book that he wrote. And in it, he said, quote, "I'm freer than colleagues who will face the voters again. I can speak my mind without fearing the consequences much. I can vote my conscience without worry." So because of his ailing condition, because he's undergoing cancer treatment, he's not running for re-election again. He realizes that, he's not going to be able to do it. So he says that for some reason, with him not having to face re-election, he's freer.
Free from what, though? What is he free from? What is he free from? You smell something, man.
Yeah.
That's that corporate stew.
Yeah. It's the same thing that's ailing Jeff Flake, and Bob Corker.
Corker.
Yeah, like cause them, like all three of them really have been, if you want to say, outspoken about Donald Trump. They're all Republicans, and usually you don't really criticize your president.
Yeah, the standing president.
Yeah, in your party.
They have vocally.
They have
loudly.
They're all not running for re-election.
So basically, Bernstein.
Uh-huh.
Well, McCain actually is, let's say, contradicting Bernstein's position.
He is.
Why would McCain feel free? He's not there anymore.
Why would he feel free? I'm freer than colleagues who will face the voters again. So it seems like if you did have to face the voters again, you wouldn't feel as free. You would have to kind of.
But think about this, though. Think about what that's saying, though. I know McCain mentioned facing the voters, but
that's not all of it.
That's not all of it. He only mentioned that because as a way to not mention the other side of it. He doesn't want to face the voters because it's not like it stresses him out to have to serve them every day. He doesn't want to face the voters because it weighs heavily on his conscience that the strings attached to him don't allow him to serve the voters.
He won't have the same support to face the voters again. So it's, again, like you said, perfectly, it's not about him facing the voters and being like scared of what they think about him and, you know, the moves that he's made in Congress. It's about if he bucks the system and goes against the old guard, the Republican establishment way of doing things.
Lobbyist shackles.
Yes.
Those shackles.
He's not going to have those same support systems that's always been in place.
Because again, if you're a public servant, if you're a civil servant, that statement doesn't make sense. Because again, it's his job and he knows it to serve the people.
Right.
So that's how you know it's bullshit.
Yup. Total, man. All right. So, officials in Seattle, they announced on Friday that they have filed a motion to vacate all convictions and drop charges for marijuana possession for anyone arrested in the city in the past few decades. This is coming from The Hill. The mayor, Jenny Durkin, said in a statement, vacating charges for misdemeanor marijuana possession is a necessary step to correct the injustices of what was a failed war on drugs, which disproportionately affected communities of color in Seattle. So the press release from the city notes that the proposed act would affect 542 people who have convictions on their records. So big round of applause for Seattle, right? Big round of applause. This is a very good move, right? I do have one statement to make, though. I have at least one statement to make. Marijuana, recreational marijuana, was passed.
Right.
It became legalized in the state of Washington.
Right. Wait. Okay. See, you know that little meme, the little GIF where the dude's looking off and the equations are crossing the face like it's floating across. That's what's going on right now. Because let's see, Seattle is
in Washington.
It's in Washington. Yeah,
it's in Washington.
It's in Washington.
And they legalized recreational marijuana
in Washington. But Seattle.
they legalized it there too.
Yeah.
This was about 6 years ago.
Okay, then
2012.
So what took them so long?
Yeah.
What took them so long?
Like it. So let's even backtrack a little bit further. So medical marijuana, I believe, was legalized in '98 in Washington, and then you know what? Was that 8 years later?
Mm-hmm.
No. I said what? No.
2006.
2012. So this was about 14 years later. 14 years later, they finally got around and they actually passed recreational marijuana. So it's legal for everybody. If you're over the age of 21, it's legal. You can possess it, smoke it, whatever. 6 years later, 6 years after passing it, now you want to get on the initiative to like free up people that have had convictions because of it. See, that's
to me, it doesn't make sense because you would think that the original bill would address it. May not have been the original bill, but whatever bill that was presented last, the one that did ultimately get passed, you would have thought that it would included something about vacating the sentences of anyone that was in prison for any marijuana related crimes, and it's expunged the records. Like you would have thought that would have been a part of it, right? To me, that makes sense.
It could, and you know what? I didn't even do the research. It could have been a ballot initiative, so the voters could have weighed in and be like, you know what, we're passing it here.
And now that I think of it, sometimes when laws are passed like that, they actually have a grace period for certain provisions in the bill. Right. Like you have 6 years or 7 years or 10 years to follow a particular provision. So that could have been the case too. That happens a lot.
Why did it take 6 years? Why wouldn't it? Again, do you know how crazy it is for a state to legalize medical marijuana, then years later legalize recreational marijuana, and then still have people in jail for marijuana possession? Do you know how crazy that is?
Are you getting at something? Are you getting at something? Because see, we're talking about jails now. Are you getting at something? You're saying that maybe keeping people in jail is lucrative in some way? Is that what you're getting at?
Somewhat.
Is that what you're getting at?
Financially beneficial, somehow, some way. It seems like
getting paid to keep people in jail.
Hey, and we're gonna get around to it. It's gonna take a few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of. They've been spoiled with some free labor, man. They've been spoiled.
That's disgusting, man.
I mean, I'm glad. I guess better late than never.
That's what I'll say. Yeah,
better late than
right
never.
Act, way too late. The right act, way too damn late.
Like, but what should be done with the individuals that are released? Like, what should be done? Like, I know I have an idea that might be seen as radical. It might be seen as not, I guess, financially doable. But again, if they were in jail for a period of time, a lot of people were in jail for 4, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, whatever their term is. A lot of them have not only lost their freedom, but lost the ability to build anything outside of jail. So once they get out, like even if their sentences are vacated and they get out, what are they getting out to? So you see what I'm saying? So, poverty. So a lot of these individuals don't have a support system, or they don't have the finances to support themselves because they've been in there. They don't have anybody. They probably don't have a place to stay. You know what I think? I think they should get like reparations. Tentative reparations. Tentative reparations. Like based on, there should be like some sort of, I don't know what number. It should calculate how many days they spent in jail, and that's the amount of money they get. And
past the legalization?
Yeah. Yeah, past the legalization. No, you know what? No.
Just total?
Total. I'm sorry, it should be retroactive because they're essentially admitting that these people have been sitting in jail for no reason.
The mayor said, failed war on drugs, which disproportionately affected communities of color.
So it's failed. So it was essentially a bad initiative in the first place, and I think it should be retroactive based on the date that they got. They got in jail, and it should be, reparations should be tentative though. I guess that's my way of the checks and balances for the people that get out. It should be tentative. I guess upon, let's say, them doing some sort of like job training program, or like working a certain amount of hours per week. So you work a certain amount of hours per week at a job. or you have a job and you get the rest of that money. You get your tentative reparations, or if you're involved in job training, you get your tentative reparations for being in jail incrementally, like as you are fulfilling the provisions of your tentative reparations installments. Now, also, I do think that, again, there's some people that are going to might be homeless. They don't have anybody.
Right.
I think they should be given some sort of like transitional housing. Maybe use some unused government housing for a certain period of time till they can get back on their feet. And then, of course, they have to pay. You know what I'm saying? They have to keep some sort of job.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, doesn't the federal government already devote billions of dollars to training millions of people in the military?
Right.
They don't just train them to fight. They train them for like certain job skills, and
no doubt.
you see them doing and picking up certain skills, and they can work when they get out of the military, not just fight. So we already do that. The federal government already sponsors training for people. So why can't they do it in lieu of this, marijuana bill being passed? They can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. That's a good idea, man.
But you don't think it's
Hey, Mike, what's the chances that happens? Good idea, man. That was a great idea, man.
Zero taste.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna go that far, man.
I think if we really care about this.
Oh yeah, if we really care.
If they really cared about
you destroy people's lives.
It destroyed people's lives. So you have to do something significant to help them repair their lives. Again, there's going to be people not going to follow it. I already know there's going to be people who are not going to invest the time in it. There's some people who are not upstanding citizens out of that group, but who cares? Yeah. There are people who can.
Give them a chance, man.
Give them a chance, man. That's all I'm saying.
Jay Scott said they should at least get back all the legal fees and lawyer fees at the very least.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's another thing. At
the very least, right?
That should be a part of their reparation.
I think that the city is going to be like, we're already doing a very good thing for them by getting them out of jail. So, you're welcome. But you know what? Another thing, this is about Seattle. It wasn't in Seattle that marijuana, the recreational marijuana was passed. It was in the whole state of Washington. This is only one major city in Washington. Why aren't we talking about this on a state level? Why isn't the whole state saying, man, we got a whole lot of damn prisoners in here for possession, and if they were out today, they wouldn't be getting locked up for it. Something don't jive here. But this is only in Seattle has been known as like a progressive city as well. Why isn't this happening all across the state of Washington?
It's weird because
it's a damn shame,
the
man.
State took the first steps, so you would think the state would have taken the first steps on this particular issue.
We talking about one city? For real, man?
Man, I'd be mad as hell.
Mad as hell.
I'd be mad as hell if I lived outside of Seattle.
Hold up. You talking about mugs outside these walls are smoking up?
Outside, not
free?
Just outside, yeah, mugs outside these city boundaries.
Yeah.
Like you on the other side of the city boundaries and your boy get out and he call you up like, yo, dog, man. Like, my son's vacating, bro. What? I'd be mad as hell.
Hold up. Your sentence was vacated and you can smoke? And you can smoke? And you won't get locked up again?
I'll be a bitter friend, dog. I'll be a bitter friend that day.
And it was a few months back we noted that Vermont was the latest state to legalize marijuana, to legalize recreational marijuana, and they are actually considering vacating misdemeanor marijuana possessions as well, or convictions as well. So it's good that they're doing it, but it's like, they're thinking about it. They're going through the process. So it's nothing that we can even say that's on the horizon yet or anything like that. Like, just get it done. Like, seriously, it makes no damn sense for people to be in jail for something that is not illegal anymore. That stresses my brain, man. Come on, be smarter than that. I mean, like give a damn about humanity at least. You know, it's like something like
or be logical.
Be logical.
That's what the channel's about.
Yeah,
just be logical about it.
All right.
If you're not being logical, that means something. That means there's some sort of lack of compassion involved in your politics.
Or you just want free slave labor.
Free slave labor. I can see that. Free slave labor.
All right, let's go to the NFL. Let's do that. All right, so the New York Times on Wednesday, they released excerpts from the October meeting between the National Football League owners, the players, and league executives to discuss player protests. So and we covered this back when it happened, and the statement that was initially released after the meeting was some type of positive statement. It was a dual statement between the players and the owners saying that, we had fruitful discussions and we're going to keep this discussion going. We're going to meet again, blah, 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 right?
And there were some members of the Players Association that were like a part of the original group that kind of were, let's say, not talked to about certain things. They were kind of pushed out.
Right. After that.
Right.
Because
Reed from San
Francisco. That was in one group, and then in the other group it was from Philly. The Eagles. I can't remember.
He was a wide receiver, right?
No, I think he was defense.
He was defense?
I think so. I can't remember.
Not McMichael. Can't remember his name.
It'll come to me, but yeah. Anyway, so we didn't have any, or nobody had any, audio recordings of this or anything like that. There were some quotes that were revealed. Specifically, I believe it was Bob McNair's comments about you can't let the inmates run the asylum.
No. Like. Did he use the word asylum or is it prison?
No, he said asylum.
I thought he said like prison or something.
I thought he said asylum. I think he did.
Well, he said something to that effect.
Yeah, but it was
basically associated like all NFL players as criminals.
Yes.
Well, not all.
Or damn slaves.
Not all.
No, just the ones that were kneeling. But anyway, so now we have some more excerpts from that meeting. So Chris Long, who is a Philadelphia Eagles defensive lineman, he was talking about Colin Kaepernick, and he said, quote, "If he was on a roster right now, all this negativeness and divisiveness could be turned into a positive." So he also added that he wasn't telling owners who they should sign onto the rosters, but that as players, each one of them knows that Colin Kaepernick should be on a roster. So most owners in that meeting ignored the conversation of Colin Kaepernick. They didn't want to talk about Colin Kaepernick whatsoever. Really, what they wanted to talk about was damage control. Damage control
and finding a token player.
Yes.
That would act as some sort of counter agent to you know what I'm saying? I guess the controversy that has already been stirred up, right, and that the NFL can't wash itself off. They're trying to find a player, most likely black.
Oh yeah, definitely has to be black.
Definitely has to be black.
Yes, that
will pretty much be a champion for the NFL and most likely a patriot.
Yes,
stands up for the flag.
This was an imaging problem. It was proposed by the Buffalo Bills owner, Terry Pagula. He said, quote, "For years we've watched the National Rifle Association use Charlton Heston as a figurehead. We need a spokesman." He also said, "For us to have a face as an African American, at least a face that could be in the media, we could fall behind. We could fall in behind that." So you want a front man, a black front man for the NFL to sell the idea that the NFL is doing all kind of good things to kind of just re-energize the good spirits.
They're looking for a Michael Steele. They're looking for a Michael Steele.
Former RNC chairman.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for. Looking for a Michael Steele.
They want a happy face, a black happy face, to project. Yes.
Yo, I'm sorry, man. Like, you just gave me some flashbacks when you said that. Like, I just pictured.
I know. That's what they want. Dance for us. Dance. That's what they want. Or at least that's what Pagula suggested. So that's offensive. That's definitely offensive. Like, you don't want to actually tackle the problems. Like, you don't want to tackle the issues that are actually being brought to light. You just want somebody to dance for you.
And then it probably they're probably more desperate now after Colin Kaepernick received that award.
Oh yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's more desperate now because Colin Kaepernick is still in the media, and I think I think Colin Kaepernick still remaining in the media, even though he is not in the NFL, I still think bodes not too well for the NFL, because that's always in the back of people's minds when they see something about Colin Kaepernick. So they have to do something to kind of fix their image, and not for the right reasons, because all they're about is maintaining viewership, maintaining ticket sales, profits, season tickets, and profits.
That's right.
Making
reach,
sure those making sure those stadiums keep filling up. That's what they're about. So even when it sounds like they're trying to solve a problem, the bottom line is always the bottom line,
which is money, straight up. But I will note one thing that Stephen Ross said. He's the Miami Dolphins owner. So again, most of these owners did not want to talk about Colin Kaepernick whatsoever. Players would say something about Colin Kaepernick, and they would just, we're going somewhere else.
Divert.
Just divert the situation, the conversation somewhere else. Like, we got to do something else. I mean, it was Bob McNair that was also saying that you gotta talk to your friends, get them to stop all of this, and like stuff like they didn't want to talk about actual issues. They just wanted to do damage control and see, like, how do we fix our image, not how do we actually address what's going on here. But one owner, like I said, Stephen Ross, the Miami Dolphins owner, he suggested an NFL-led march on Washington. He said that would include players and owners, and that really wasn't talked about. After I guess that was suggested, then Eric Reed, the San Francisco safety, or the former San Francisco safety, he kind of pivoted back to Colin Kaepernick. That, I will say though, that actual suggestion, that would, I think, do something.
Wait a second. But what would be the purpose for the march on Washington?
Okay. Let me delve into it. Let me go a little bit further. Okay.
All right.
Because we didn't get more details than that. We didn't get more details from Stephen Ross.
Yeah, give him the details.
Now, if this was an actual march on Washington that was led by players and owners and invited other people in, and the purpose was criminal justice reform, to talk about issues that are actually affecting our community and members of our community in a very disproportionate way. If you actually wanted to surround the march around that and actually go to Washington and because the NFL has a very large reach, they can communicate their message to many people across this nation and other nations as well. If they were to surround the march around that, I think it would make somewhat of a difference.
But like you said, if and remember, we also did the story on or I don't even know if we did the story specifically on this, but remember when the NFL said that they were going to donate money to certain nonprofit groups?
So that was the
one of the provisions,
agreement that they had reached, so that it wasn't
activist groups.
Right,
they're going to donate money to activist groups, like some charities, some nonprofits that focus their efforts on like strengthening their community and criminal justice. That's the split that we were talking about earlier between the different, the player group, because the player group that was, I guess, negotiating that agreement, it didn't come with strings. Well, I guess official strings attached that you players, you have to stop the protest now. But I guess it was kind of understood. It was implied that, hey, since we're giving all this money away, can you guys just like quiet it down a bit? And even the decision by the league to kind of shovel money in the direction of certain activist groups, we thought that was half-hearted, because if you are truly trying to, I guess, see that some sort of criminal justice reform happens, wouldn't you sponsor candidates that can actually like stick their fingers into the system? Like, wouldn't you sponsor like district attorneys and sheriffs who are, you know, who can actually like cause change from the inside? Wouldn't you sponsor people like that if you really cared? Why would you like
just
kind of
throw
start
money
from
at the problem?
Like, yeah, why would you not start with the lowest common denominator, which is the actual system? So again, what would the March on Washington like actually mean, or what would happen, and what would it be for? What would
it
be
have
the
to,
purpose?
the messaging would have to be very clear, and it, like I said, like when we talk about like community involvement, we talk about people that are actually engaged in issues, engaged in their society and their nation. I always go back to Catalonia, because we saw the protest there, and it was some 700, 800,000 strong. Okay, they were united as a people. They're like, look, we got a gripe. You better release these people because they were protesting political leaders, that were in jail, and they wanted them released. Right? They got them released. They came together as united, 700, 800,000 strong. That's what I'm saying. Like, if the march was surrounded about some, like I said, the real issues of why players are actually taking a knee during the national anthem.
But see, you know what? Think about that. What if they did that? What if they did kind of center the march around that subject, around that motive, around that intent, like around that purpose? What if they did do that? That would kind of make them blackballing Colin Kaepernick to this day seem very
they would have to, they would have to invite Colin Kaepernick back in before that happened. It wouldn't make any sense. Oh no, it wouldn't.
Isn't that the issue he was kneeling about?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, like it would be like you said, it would be a horrible look if you actually enacted a march, but Colin Kaepernick still doesn't have a job.
But again, it seems as if, I mean, even from the beginning, with all the arm locking, the kind of throwing money at the problem by shoveling it to nonprofits,
just different groups, and again, that's good because different groups will have money to do things in the community, but it's not with the long reach of the NFL. It's like, it's just them doing it by themselves. It's not the NFL standing up in commercials or in the community with them, actually working with them to do stuff. It's just like, here you go.
And the NFL does do that with tons of organizations.
They do. The NFL is a huge corporation. If they actually wanted to do something on criminal justice reform, on the real reason why players are taking a knee, they could, and the reach would be massive.
But it just seems as if they're doing everything except for the one small thing of just letting Colin Kaepernick play football.
They're making the problem worse. They're making the problem worse.
That's right here. The thing is right here, and they're doing everything around that.
Exactly. Like, hey, I don't see Kaepernick. Damn. I mean, Chris Long said it. Look, we all like, if we feel that if he just had a job, that would kind of erase all this negativity.
They are bringing it on themselves. You brought it on yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's what's happening right here. Their whole kind of their whole narrative is that he will be a distraction. I'm like, you're making it a distraction.
Exactly. Colin Kaepernick is right in front of their face. Just acknowledge him. They're like, nah, I don't want to look at him. You're just making your problem. I think going into the next season, the kneeling is going to be probably less. I guess significant, like less players are probably going to do it. I think Colin Kaepernick even said that if he was to go on another football team too, that he achieved what he wanted to by kneeling,
because he brought attention to it.
Exactly. So he said that he wouldn't do it again, I believe.
But it's kind of funny that I guess people's level of outrage, and not just people, but like these teams who make the excuse that he's going to bring negative attention. And it kind of like it illustrates to me like what people like the things people prioritize as far as like what gets to them, as far as what makes them outraged. So Colin Kaepernick just kneeled silently.
Yep.
That's all he did. And somehow that brings negative attention on the team. That is unwanted attention on the team. But yet there are current players who have criminal records.
That's when, yeah.
Domestic abuse. Who are on teams now, and these fans don't care about that.
So
they may care about it.
Yeah, what's termed like negative attention.
What's termed negative attention? I'm like it's like he's gonna bring unwanted attention. I was like, well, there are plenty of players who have questionable characters,
beat on women,
beat on, like, you know what I'm saying, domestic violence, DUIs and whatnot,
and get chance after chance,
chance after chance, and these teams are okay with signing players like that.
And this player, Colin Kaepernick, is trying to do what's best for our nation, trying to speak up for people that don't have the voice that he has.
And even if you disagree with that, even if you disagree with, I guess, what Colin Kaepernick says his purpose is in life, you can disagree with that. But like when you, I guess, compare it to and juxtapose him with other players, not just on a skill level that are in the NFL right now, but on a character level, it's all disingenuous. Because if they really cared about like character and players like with upstanding character, and then all those other players would elicit just as much negative attention that Colin Kaepernick did.
But see, as we noted about this meeting, it wasn't about that. It was about damage control. They what that tells me from the conversations they had in this meeting. What it tells me is that they understood that the narrative being sold out there by people like President Trump and people like, whoever, like conservative voices, saying that it was anti-America, it's anti-military, whatever kind of nonsense. What these owners are telling me is that they also believe it's nonsense. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be trying to do just damage control. It wouldn't be about that. They would be along the same long line as thinking and say that, hey, Kaepernick can't be here because, hey, he espoused these views. He's disrespectful to the flag and to the nation and in the military. They didn't say that. They don't even want to talk about Kaepernick. So they understand this bullshit as well. They just don't want to deal with the hassle. That's all. They just want to go around the problem. They just want to go around it. They don't have to face it up front.
They're cowards and they're spineless.
They are. They are spineless because, again, like you said, it's all about that bottom line. It's all about that dollar. If you did the right thing here, I think if you did the right thing, I don't think it would hurt you in the long run. I don't even think it would really hurt you in the short term. Not much.
But isn't that kind of what our parents teach us from the jump, though?
Yeah, just do the right thing, right?
Just do the right thing.
Just do the right thing. Be on the right side, right?
Because if you're not, it's just going to make it worse.
All right, we're gonna stop there. It's 9:15. We're gonna open this up for calls, and let's see. Let's put the graphic on the display here. So the number is 669-900-6833. If anybody has a question or a comment about anything that we've talked about or something else that you feel is important, feel free to give us a call and we can get you on the air. We did have a question from one of our contributors today, Aaron. He asked if we considered having callers involved throughout the whole show. Yes, we have considered that. The problem is that it's only the two of us. And so it's not that we want to screen calls. It's just that we have one computer system. Yeah. And we have to man it. So and we can't put up displays. We can't put up videos. We can't do different things with the screen and pay attention to callers at the same time. Yeah. We'd have to have somebody else that does that as well.
And it would probably bog down the show.
Yeah,
because it would affect like how many topics we can get to. Because like it's harder to control dialogue. Like that we don't know it's coming.
Right.
We don't know it's coming, and we don't know how many callers are coming either. We might have 3 calls in the middle of a show we might have to deal with, and we haven't even got to particular topics yet. So
if we knew, like, again, that deals with another person. If they see, that's not so much screen. Well, it's kind of like screening calls. We don't want to deny callers, but if we're going throughout the show and we're accepting calls at the same time, then the question needs to be about what we're currently talking about, and there's no way that we can know that just by picking up the phone. So it's just no way to do that right now.
But and also maybe there might be a conflict with I guess the battery life of our earpieces as well. We might not be able to have them on the entire show.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that's true.
But we see 3 super chats come through. And I can't remember what it was. I think I saw Dude Poop. Yep, Dude Poop. There you go. Appreciate that.
Dude Poop.
Jeremiah as well, coming in with the super chat. And last but not least, Aaron Burnett.
The aforementioned Aaron Burnett.
I know. Sliding us some cheese.
Thank you very much to all of our contributors. And we also have a new patron on Patreon as well, too. And we'll get to shouting that individual out in just a minute. All right. All right. Is it on? All right. Let's set up this environment here. 3 3. All right. Nobody in the room waiting yet, so let's make sure everything's working all right. I think everything's working okay. All right, let me look up who this patron is so we can Aaron said he's buying us drinks.
Oh, that's what's up
with that contribution, man. Now we're gonna put that towards the business, man. All that goes right back into the business.
Look, most guys not stopping with this lip reading thing. She will not let this thing go. Can you do a lip reading contest?
Yeah, it's funny. I think we got some calls now.
Yep, we got 2 on the line. We do have 2 callers.
All right, so first is area code 443.
I think I recognize that one. We know who that is.
You're on the air with LTMB.
What's going on, Mike? What's going on, Will? How y'all doing tonight?
What's going on, man?
Doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. So I've been getting into Reddit. Because calling in, talking into you guys, everything. I started writing out my opinions and stuff on Reddit. I've been having this intense discussion with this troll who is talking about how Trump deserves a Nobel Prize for the North Korea, South Korea thing. And it just strikes me as how stupid people are, right? Like, just back in November of last year, the dude was about to start, a nuclear conflict with a military junta that he was antagonizing the leader of, calling him childish names, with Japan and Guam and South Korea, all of whom had some skin in the game, right? And maybe even us, I mean, it's speculation, but who knows? Maybe even us, right? But it's cool, though. We'll give him a Nobel Peace Prize. And what about that shit with the White House Correspondents' Dinner and the way they attacked Michelle Alexander, right? I was like, oh, okay. So really, what you're mad about is, you basically got called out. News media got called out. It wasn't even about Trump, because she didn't say shit about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, other than she was the actor for the lady or in The Handmaiden, and she said some shit about her smoky eye, and she called her a liar. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't nothing worth all that. They were mad because she basically called the media out, and she said, "Listen, you guys built this monster, and you're trying to make sure that you get your money out of it, and you're willing to sacrifice the country to do it. And anybody with half a brain knows it. And as long as I'm up here talking about it, you guys want to talk about how my jokes are inappropriate. Well, how about how your behavior is inappropriate? That's what I hate, man. Like people don't sit back. Like people sit there and be like, oh yeah, she was absolutely wrong. She that was intense physical criticism. Fuck you, intense physical criticism. Really? That wasn't intense physical criticism. Intense physical criticism is talking about a woman menstruating because she had interesting questions for you during a debate. That is intense physical criticism. You know what I mean?
Making fun of a disabled journalist.
Yep. The moment. What he did. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or taking it
just oblivious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. It's kind of like it's just kind of. To me, it just seemed like a bunch of fake outrage as far as that correspondence ended. Because I mean, the point is, like her jokes and her style and her. They weren't unique as far as that event goes. Everyone knows what that event is about. It's a roast. So people are there to get roasted, and you're there to hear somebody roast the most influential people in this country. That's what it's always been about. And like you said, she hit everybody though. She hit Congress. She hit the media.
She hit Hillary Clinton.
She hit Hillary Clinton.
It was funny too.
And, yeah, exactly. So it was like, all of a sudden she hits all those people, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders is supposed to remain unscathed in all this. And the joke that she did make, the one that everybody was so offended about, it was based on her highlighting how Sarah Huckabee Sanders is a liar. Mm-hmm. That's what that was based on. And like the members of the establishment media like MSNBC, Mika Brzezinski, she tweeted about that and talked about how disgusting it was. It was just
dude, that chick. Oh my god, Mika Brzezinski and First off, you're gonna get up there and hand wring about the party that you've shilled for decades on national television, and you're going to get up there and hand wring, I am no longer a Republican. And then Mika Brzezinski, who comes out with I have so much feeling for humanity. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. I get it. It's coming from a good spot. I understand, right? I get it. But don't sit there and attack Michelle Wolf because she called you out on your bullshit. That you know what I mean? Don't do that.
It's a roast, man. Like Mike said, man, it's a roast. Worse things have been said about people like. Have you seen the Comedy Central roast, man? Man, much has been said about people that is way worse than what was said about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I don't know why people are getting all offended by what was said about. It was about it like she talked about it for maybe about a minute or something like that. There were maybe like 3 jokes or so. It was like it was tepid.
It was mild. It was very mild.
It was nothing.
But
babies. They're babies, man. They get up there and they'll talk all kinds of shit about American people, brown people and black people, and they want to bring back white supremacy and they want to kick people out of this country, who've been exploited for. You know what I mean? Talk about you will not replace us. But the minute you say anything which might shed some light on how duplicitous and disingenuous they are, all of a sudden they are so hurt now, they must have justice. They must have justice, right?
It's like
ridiculous.
The lie, calling out the lie seems to be worse than the lie, or calling out the atrocity seems to now be worse than the atrocity. Calling out the injustice now, for some reason, seems to be worse than the injustice itself. It doesn't make sense, Court. And we're gonna have to get on to these next couple calls. We just had another one enter the chat, and we as always, appreciate your call, and glad to talk to you again and contributing to the show, man.
Y'all have a good night.
Man, appreciate it.
You too, man. Appreciate it. I don't have any sympathy for
I kind of wanted to address what he meant, like the Trump thing too, about people giving Trump credit even though he has not displayed any kind of diplomacy over the course of his administration. People giving him credit. Like the credit goes to President Moon, and you can watch our live show to see our breakdown. Our breakdown on that. Trump doesn't deserve any credit, and people keep a lot of people point to articles where Moon is saying Trump made a good contribution, and the media actually asked Moon about what contributions those were, and he couldn't elaborate.
Yeah, he wasn't detailed.
Because Moon is very smart. He knows what kind of man he's dealing with. One way to get Trump to the table is to stroke his ego. Just give him credit for something, because that's how Trump responds. Get him to come to the table by stroking his ego. So I'll just say, oh, Trump helped out. And Trump is like, oh, yeah, I helped out. I'm coming to the table. Because he's a child. You got to stroke his ego. And that's what Moon did, because he's smart and he knows who he's dealing with. So people have fallen for, like, Moon's strategy, and they've taken it literally when it actually was just a strategy for this particular president.
All right, 614, you're on the air with LTMB.
Yeah, g'day guys, it's Andrew. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Andrew?
Yeah, you were talking earlier about the idiot who wrote the article saying that if we had term limits, all of a sudden lobbyists would write everything. Right? People forget that the U.S. government used to have departments of public servants whose job it was to prepare these laws for the sitting representatives, right? That used to be a job that people used to do. And these would be people whose job it was to understand the engineering, if it's an engineering field, or the legal ins and outs, or to do the research they were supposed to do. All those things used to exist, right? They used to be part of the whole Washington machine, where if you were a sitting representative, you would get advice from people who worked for the public so that you could legislate and vote in an informed and correct manner. And as the system steadily got more and more corrupt, the lobbyists went out of their way to make sure all those guys were fired and gone. And those departments were shut down because they want the only people that your representatives are talking to be lobbyists. Right? So you part of the solution to money in politics is going to be getting rid of the lobbyists altogether. They don't belong in the equation, right? That's all there is to it. So you just need to, you don't even need new departments, right? They've probably still got the office space. Seriously.
Right.
You just need to put people back into it. And it needs to be transparent. So when you get them to do so you might look at Elon Musk's electric cars, right? You want to look at rolling them out? Well, you do some science on the subject. You do some studies. You roll up some stuff. You go like, yeah, actually, this is in the public interest. Then you make those studies available to the public, since the public paid for them anyway, right? As well as informing the various people who are representing their areas. Right? You don't need your representatives to have PhDs and everything from finance to molecular engineering. That's not what they're there for. They're there to make a moral and an ideological choice that's supposed to be for the community, right? The expertise, you pay the experts for, and you put them on staff, and then you print what they're making available and you make it publicly available is one of your best anti-corruption methods. It's just we're at late stage capitalism now, so all those checks and balances that were part of these institutions have all been eroded and taken away. And any removal of money from politics is going to involve restoring those institutions that used to be there, right? This is not a new thing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Half the stuff that needs to be done was already done. It got torn down because you had a small group of capitalist assholes who got really, really offended that FDR rolled back their robber baron lifestyle and spent from World War II onwards doing everything they could to roll you guys back to the Gilded Age. Well, get rid of them, my preferred methods, guillotines, and restore the stuff to where you were with the New Deal, and then go further from that. I mean, just one thing FDR was trying to do would have made a huge difference for how society looks right now. He wanted to do a maximum wage, right? He wanted to say that there is an income that no moral person should be able to earn more than. And the second you go over that income, 100% of Any extra money you earn can go straight into the taxation coffers and go towards a community that is supporting you being that rich. Right? Now, that is that's an actual measure that would have put a limit on the accumulation of capital that defines capitalism, right? That's the type of measure that would have stopped someone from like Dr. Evil, Jeff Bezos, from becoming the massive asshole that he is, right? And like, I'm also fond of a wealth tax, right? I think maximum income is a great idea. I also think a wealth tax is a great idea. If you've got more wealth than 10 times the median wealth on the planet, like in your community, there's no good way you got that. You know what? You can take a chunk of that and you can pay it to the tax man every year, and we can put some down pressure on that wealth accumulation, right? But I think it's coming. I think we're at a tipping point. I think you're going to be facing a very similar situation to what FDR was facing when he ran against Hoover back in 1929 or whatever it was. And I think you've got a bunch of people in play who know what to do, and hopefully we can restore those institutions. Like actual public servants who know what they're doing, advising our representatives on actual reality, fact, science-based policy. I don't know why someone doesn't sue a government for running a budget on trickle-down economics. We know it's fairy tale economics. What kind of politician is allowed to pass a law we know is based on lies? At what point should they continue to get away with that? And the answer is they get away with it because the system lacks the checks and balances to stop it from happening. So when everything goes to shit in the not too distant future, which it is going to do, I'm really hoping the people we have in place know that those check and balances need to be part of the solution. Anyway, I know you've got another call, and I tend to keep going. So I just, yeah.
We appreciate that, Andrew. Yeah, you said it all, really, man. You summed it up, and you perfectly described our failing condition. And I think you're right too. They do need to be sued. There's a worthy lawsuit right there. Will it happen though?
Well, it's not just the US either. You guys need to understand that this same neoliberal ideology is hitting every developed Western nation on the planet. It's not just the US that's copying this. Everyone's copying this crap, right? And I don't know why someone hasn't tried to fix it. Anyway, guys, I've got to go. But great show. I'll catch you late next week.
All right, thanks, Andrew. Great call from Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Once again, never disappoints.
All right, we got a call from 830. You're on the air with LTMB.
Hi, it's me, Taylor, from New Braunfels, Texas.
What's going on, Taylor? How you doing?
Hey, Ray.
Good. So yeah, since y'all talked about the DCCC leak, I know Jimmy Dore also has a good video about it called Caught. Leaked audio reveals Democrats cheating progressives again, and it kind of shows a cartoon video of it where they make the guy who defends Crow as a mobster with a cigar. It's really funny.
I saw that. That was funny. That was real funny.
Yeah.
Very creative.
And then also Democracy Now! Also has the full cartoon, a senior Democrat caught on tape pursuing progressives. So, it seems like it just wasn't Bernie that they rigged it to. To me, I think they've been doing this for years, rigging it to progressives. And it seems like now we've finally know it.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Because it's easy to focus on Bernie, but why wouldn't they do that to other progressives? And I think that maybe people spotted it a little bit more easily this time because it's this election cycle featured Bernie, who who contrast your typical Democratic politician. So people came face to face with that rigging. But I'm with you on this one. They've probably been doing it for years. And
we have ways to communicate with each other too now, though. Because like in past elections, we had the internet, but people really weren't engaging in politics across social media platforms like they did in the 2016 election and going forward as well. So now those type of things are going to become they're gonna be outed, and this guy Tillman, he's gonna record it and it's gonna get out, and Intercept is gonna share transcripts of this, and we're gonna actually hear the corruption for the first time. And like I said, I think you're right. These things have been going on for years and years and years. It's just that we're actually hearing them firsthand.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I think it's good that this information's gone out, because obviously, it's not going to be easy for, the DNC to continue to do this. I mean, I'm sure they will, but obviously it'll be much more noticeable, and they're probably just not going to be able to do it as much. So that's what I'm hoping for.
They did it to the wrong person in 2016. So I think that kind of shedding a light on kind of how they treated Bernie kind of prompts people, not just people, but like these progressive candidates, to want to kind of record this reality
because they know what's going to happen.
They know what's going to happen.
They're set up for that.
Yeah.
But just like you said too, when you research Tillman and CNN or Tillman and MSNBC, you didn't see any results. So they're definitely going to continue these practices, because corporate media is probably going to ignore the situation. They don't really want to broadcast that to the voting public.
Right, but it seems like more people are now tuning into the independent media now, which is really great. So that's also hopeful.
Yeah,
so,
it's hopeful.
And also, especially with the Justice Democrats. I mean, obviously the Justice Democrats' worst enemy is pretty much the DCCC. So, now that they have their own movement, I'm just hoping that maybe they'll kind of give some pressure against them. I'm also hopeful for that too. But I mean, and just unfortunately, I just don't see how DemX is really going to work the way our political system is. So,
right.
I mean, I guess for independence, it could help, but as for an actual third party, no.
No. Again, we don't. I said it before. We don't need political parties, because whatever a Democrat is or whatever a Republican is, it's really nothing. I mean, there's no definition to where if I run as a Democrat, that actually means something now. That doesn't change my ideology. So my ideology is whatever it is. But the only way that we can actually ever come to that kind of reality is if people stop buying into it. And for people to stop buying into it, they would have to become informed.
That kind of ties into kind of what we were talking about earlier. You know what I'm saying? About, Hoyer and all that. Hoyer, I guess, admitting that the Democratic Party is pushing certain candidates. You mentioned the fact that the constituents are going to have to put forth an effort and kind of inform themselves of these particular activities, so then they understand what they're voting for. But again, the lowest common denominator that you hinted at, or actually explicitly said.
And then of course, last Saturday, I watched Julio Castro do a speech, saying that you may hear in the news media that Democrats don't represent. We don't believe in anything. And he's saying, but that's not true. But obviously, unfortunately, I mean, it is kind of true, at least for the actual DNC and DCCC. I mean, obviously, it's not for the people. It'd just be for the corporations and money. So yeah, it's just and of course, he was the mayor of San Antonio, which is the city I was born in. So.
They'll go far enough to actually win elections. They'll go just far enough to where they think they can logically and realistically win elections. Hillary Clinton thought she'd only have to go this far to actually win the election. That's why she didn't feel it necessary to actually, I guess, jump on the progressive bandwagon and actually champion those kind of causes. She didn't think it was necessary.
And to go into like the swing states too, like the
That's why she ignored him. She thought she had him in the bag. So I'm only like the Democratic establishment way is I'm only gonna go as far as necessary. Like change is gonna come, but I'm only gonna let it push me so far.
But then look how look how old they are though. Remember you talked about maybe the visibility of what happened to Bernie and is happening to other progressive candidates is more visible, so there's more attention being placed on it. Well, maybe some of these older candidates, such as Hillary Clinton, who doesn't feel that she has to go as far, because see, that's how they made it in the past,
right? So that's the old strategy, man.
That's how they. That's how it did work. But like you said, with the
and also in like the platitudes too. I'll just say like vague statements like hope and change, and then what Obama did, and then Hillary Clinton just said like break down the barriers, stronger together. It's like obviously that's over now. That doesn't work anymore.
Right. It's they're mostly about messaging. It's not really about, I guess, advocating for people, like actually representing people. They're all about what's doing as little as possible, because if they actually went farther than that,
getting by just to get by.
Yeah, exactly. If they went farther than that, that would put to risk the support, I guess, the financial support they're getting from their donors, their big money donors.
Right.
And they don't want to do that. Too much money.
Right.
Too much. All right, Taylor, thank you very much for calling in, man.
All right, thank you. Bye.
I want to give a shout out to Aaron again. He dropped us some more green in that super chat. Appreciate that once again, my brother. And then Dude Pooh being silly in the chat too, talking about we stole his wallet.
Jacked him, man. Where the CFPB at, man?
I know, man. When you need them. Oh, sorry, we don't have money.
Yeah. They ain't got no money to help you, man. They ain't got no money for you, man. We can address one. We saw one comment in the chat, and of course there was a few weeks ago we did a segment on Jimmy Dore.
I thought you were not. I didn't think you were going there. But
no, I want to go there because it kind of ties into what I talked about today on Facebook, right?
Yes, it does.
All right, so a few weeks ago we did a segment on Jimmy Dore. Now, during that segment, we never said, Jimmy's trash, or, you need to stop listening to Jimmy Dore, he's a fraud. We never said any of that. But we did have a gripe with the narrative that he was pushing and saying that Republicans are now more progressive on marijuana than Democrats.
We also, you got to add in also for more context, it wasn't that just one story as well. Right. We actually covered a story probably the week before, maybe 2 weeks before
that, right?
About him kind of misquoting and misrepresenting YouTube.
Yeah, and splicing up the video to make it seem more nefarious than it was.
We determined that based on Jimmy's known political profile and his known kind of process of delivering content, we are not new to Jimmy.
Right.
So we have high standards based on what we've already seen of him. So if you respect somebody and then something strange and like contrary occurs with how they deliver something, then it sticks out.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
And it stuck out.
Because if you see over a period of time where somebody is consistently forthright and honest about a particular story and highlighting very relevant stories and kind of presenting them in a way that is not misleading.
And that was his whole style.
That's
what he was notable for.
Yes, exactly. So when we saw something that was the opposite of that, it did stick out. And that's because he's usually very straightforward on certain things.
Right. And so, like you said, so those two stories were instances where, like, something was off here. Like, he he wasn't telling the story like it is. He was adding something to like make it more damaging than it really was. So that's why we highlighted them, right? Now, when we uploaded the video to YouTube, there was, you know, a bunch of negative comments like, oh, why are you attacking Jimmy? And he, of course, he was using hyperbole, right? And, you know, we responded to some of these comments, and the one thing I'll say is, at no point in time during that video did he ever say, you know, I'm joking, or psych, you know, nothing like that. And people share his videos all the time, right? And they always note how real he is and how honest he is. Like we said, we've noticed that from him too, and like how he comes from facts, he comes from, you know, real information, and that's what I guess propels his narrative, right? So to say that was hyperbole, why wasn't anything else hyperbole? I've never heard that claim. Like I've never heard that before.
You know how you can shoot that down. How did the audience take it? Don't tell me it's hyperbole, because why are you instructing us to receive something as hyperbole? But if you go to the video and go throughout all the comments, the audience, his viewers, did not take it as hyperbole. So why come to us and try to instruct us on how to take it when the viewers did not take it as hyperbole at all? So you telling us it's hyperbole doesn't make sense and doesn't line up with what how the viewers took it. The millions of viewers.
And that was one of the
So did they take
comments.
It wrong too?
Yeah,
did they take it wrong? Did they take it wrong?
That was one of the responding comments that we made. You look at the comments, and they seem to have believed them. Yeah, you know, the Republican Party, look at that. You know, where are the Democrats? Like, come on, it was a lie. It was a lie.
Exactly. So obviously they didn't get the joke either.
Because it wasn't a joke. It wasn't. If it was a joke, it was like a 5-minute joke that never was like, joking. Psych. You know I'm joking, right? No, it was none of that. So again, just say he's wrong. Just say he was wrong on this. We're not saying like everything that Jimmy does is wrong, right? But a couple instances where we're like, come on, man, you're not being real here.
We broke down one story, and even as we were breaking down the story, we were bestowing an extreme amount of respect to Jimmy and giving him his much needed props. Just in general and overall, we just felt the need to cover this because, hey, something don't look right here, and it's kind of up to Jimmy to correct that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's up to him to correct that. Again, this is not about, oh, he was wrong about this one piece of information. Oh, he got a name wrong, or he got the name of a city wrong, or you know what I'm saying? It's like it wasn't something like that.
It wasn't petty.
We all make mistakes like that. We all make mistakes like that. But there is no mistake in constructing a framework. There's no mistake in that. You have to. It's kind of like
that's purposeful. You have to make an effort for that, man.
You have to make an effort. You
like
don't
to entitle the video that way. You did it on purpose.
To that company, that video title with commentary, we understood that there was purpose involved. So it's more of a thought process involving framing a narrative and creating a framework that was essentially false. Right. So that's why we felt the need to highlight it, because actually it wasn't even about Jimmy, because at the end of the day, it was about the millions of people who actually did not take it as a joke and actually followed that same line of thinking. Right. You know what I'm saying?
So there was a comment earlier from this guy handled Will Charism. Yeah. And I remember he was one of the commenters on that video as well, and he was debating us, trying to argue like, yeah, it was clearly hyperbole. No, it wasn't hyperbole. Sorry, it just wasn't. So now he's saying, you got to watch us closely because something doesn't smell right about us because we dared to offer a contrary opinion or a contrary opinion to Jimmy Dore, the great Jimmy Dore, I guess. You know, like we attacked him. We didn't attack him. Like if you're wrong about something, we might just say that you're wrong about something. Like, and we'll have facts to back that up. Like we had facts in that video. It wasn't just like, oh, something Jimmy said just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And it wasn't a feeling. It was false. It was clearly false. Okay. So that's why we were like, no, the large audience that Jimmy Dore has, the amount of influence that he has, the number of people that share his videos and influence other people. Nah, man, you got to get this right, man. You can't just do that, because if we care about what's being dispersed to people in the community, people that listen to alternative media, independent media, progressive media, we should care about what message is out there, and we do. So if there's something out there that's wrong, you better believe we're going to be there to say it's wrong.
Egregiously wrong.
Yeah.
When it's egregious.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, we challenge anybody to say the same thing about us. If we're wrong about something, call us out. I have no problem with being called out. But the reason why I don't think it happens with us is because we never lead from where the facts aren't. Like, there may be a point in time where we don't have the facts right. There may be a point in time like that, but that's not intentional. This was clearly intentional. You like, he constructed it to be like, I made something and that's where I'm going to lead from. That's not what we're going to do. So if somebody does do that, no matter what kind of ideology they have, we're going to hold them accountable. Sorry if you don't like that. I mean, that's what we've been doing since we've been around. So
that's what we've been doing. I think that kind of like ties into what I said to court about the correspondence dinner, and that like kind of highlighting something that's egregious, highlighting something that's off and misleading seems to rub people the wrong way more so than the misleading deed or the misleading act itself. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's kind of like,
why you get mad at me? Like, I'm not like. I mean, especially we soft shooted actually, and like we soft shoot that.
We did.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it could have been more aggressive. It really could have been more aggressive.
Like, we didn't, like I
but
said,
we didn't feel it necessary to do that
because I don't have nothing against Jimmy. Like I said, and we didn't. I still watch Jimmy too. I don't know how how more objective you can be. You know what I'm saying? To call somebody out and then still say, yeah, I still watch Jimmy.
Like,
I still respect him.
So we watch it, right? And then we're like, oh no, that's terribly wrong. But we love Jimmy so much, we're going to let it ride and pass. Be like, it's not wrong. We didn't see it. Or no, let's create an explanation that he didn't offer. There it is. There it is. Let's do that. Come on, man. You're doing way too much by putting words in his own mouth. Let him speak for himself. He's a big boy. You say he's a big boy, right? He's been at this game for a long time, right? Let him speak for himself. Again, we don't really got anything against the man.
Like I said, maybe, again, from the beginning of the show when we were talking about your Facebook post, maybe I had some faulty expectations for people that had nothing to do with their positions or their platform.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't that occur? I already know no matter what, like, I guess, political label you put upon yourself, whether it's like, I don't know, conservative, libertarian, progressive, whatever it is, a liberal, typically people tend to latch on to personalities, no matter what group it is. I don't care if it's a feminist. I don't care if it's some alt-right figure. I don't care if it's some white supremacist. People usually attach themselves or latch on to people that they can relate to, and not relate to in information, just relate to in delivery, relate to in style, relate to just in like some sort of superficial appeal. And so what happens is, again, it doesn't matter where you fall, what category you fall, the same thing happens. The same thing happens. We fall for the same thing. And so what happens is, you fall for a personality, and then any information that comes from that personality, because you like his style, because you like him, because you feel you can relate to him, then you kind of relinquish your ability to question that.
Be objective.
Exactly. You kind of lose your ability to be objective when you do that. So what happens when somebody criticizes that person, you don't even see the criticism clearly. You automatically see the criticism, even if it's valid, you see it as this like unfounded attack. And then you know what I'm saying? It's like, because again, you've fallen in love with this person. You fall in love with the person, and not necessarily like information that person dispensed. You fall in love with the person. You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, we do what we do, and everything that we have stated on this program, and even before we were doing live, I'll back up every single one of our viewpoints. Go back, take a look at them, find something, ask us to back it up, and say, and defend it. I'm sure we'll be able to do it.
Yeah, and what if something else comes out that may, I don't know, cause a adjustment in the narrative to where we might have to adjust our perspective. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah, but see, again, that's something. But see, but no, that I don't care about that. If there's more information introduced and it causes us to see it from a different angle, I don't care about that. And like being wrong, I don't care about that. But see, this is something different. This wasn't because of a lack of information. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't because the information was out there to clearly state like what you're trying to promote is not actually reality. Like, come on, that's not real. That's not real. You're doing way too much here. Yeah. So that's basically what we said. And like I said, I stand beside it. There was nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But people seem to have taken offense. Whatever. I mean, whatever. We're right. Deal with it. I don't care. We're right. Sorry. I don't. Well, I'm right. And What? Huh? Yeah.
No. You gotta do it. You gotta do it, dog.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's
Go
right.
ahead. All right, man. I think that's the end of the show.
I mean, they can. That's what it is, man. I think it's amazing that if you're willing to. I just find it interesting, though. I have no problem with disagreements because we've always had people disagree in the comments, but like for the most part, like people do it with a little more tact. You know what I'm saying? My thing is if you're gonna troll, but you ain't gonna call us up, like come on, yo.
Exactly, man. We had the phone line open. We had the print on the. We had the graphic on the screen. If you have something to say, don't just do a ride by hit.
Nah, you know what they afraid of?
Debate.
True. But they afraid. Like when like a basketball player dunks on somebody and they put their nuts all in their face.
Oh my gosh.
They afraid that these logic nuts gonna be all in their face after we dunk on them.
And they're gonna get embarrassed.
They're gonna be embarrassed.
And they're gonna be on the line, publicized. They're gonna have to defend their position even when they get proven wrong. Because again, man, you can't fight the logic, man. That's look. As long as I'm on the right side of logic, man, that's where I'm gonna stay. It may be unpopular, but I'm gonna stay right the hell there. So, Aaron, good night, man. Good night, everybody. We had a good show, I think. Again, had maybe a couple things that we didn't get to. We keep pushing.
Yeah.
But
we should eventually get to them.
Yeah, eventually. They're not. They can always be discussed. So. Yeah. But anyway, the next show will be on Thursday, the 3rd, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I said I was gonna get to our newest patrons. And I don't think we had read these off before. But back about a week ago, Scott Trinkle became a patron on Patreon. Also, Wendell LT Wright became one of our patrons. And our most recent is Percy Watkins. That was just a couple days ago. So thank you to all of you that contribute to the show financially. We know that is good hard-earned money that you're giving up to us, no matter if it's $1 or what, a few cents, whatever it is, man. It all goes into fun to help upgrade this program. So
we don't want you to give up like necessities.
Yeah, true.
Like don't be giving up no toothpaste.
That's where I was going too. Toothpaste. Yeah,
you
got to have that because you don't need to have the functified breath and all that. The brat for you young listeners.
So
JD, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man.
Yo, bring me back. I gotta go open that folder up.
Yeah.
That folder it's not dusty because it's on the computer, but It's not literally dusty.
At least you didn't say you had to put the cassette tape in. I still got some cassette tapes.
Yo, my cassette tapes are in like some storage somewhere.
Yeah, they're somewhere. Yeah,
why don't I throw them away, dog? It's just maybe they're just like I just want to have some memento.
Yeah, man. Hey, like 30 years from now, it's gonna be like, what the hell is that? You got a what? A cassette tape? I got a few. Singles? Were they called singles? Yeah, they were called singles, right?
Then,
damn, yo, that even sounds weird.
Remember, they would like put the single out, and then they would put like 3 remixes.
Yeah,
like yo,
on the back,
okay,
on the other side.
How you mix a remix? I'm like, you come out with
like
a single
3 times.
I'm like, yo, that you know what they do that for, right? That's how they justify the single being $9.99.
Yeah, exactly.
Or $7.99, whatever. That's how they justify.
Or they put like some wax song on the other
side. Yeah, some song that's like that's buried deep within the song
on the album. Like you're never gonna listen to that.
I remember I held on to like. I swear, I held on tight until tapes went away. Cassettes went away because they were cheaper.
I held on. Oh yeah, I held on.
Cheaper. I was like, "Sure, I still got a tape player." Let's see. Let me see. Yeah. CD $17.99.
Hell yeah, dog.
Let's see. They got the tape for $7.99. I'm gonna get the tape. Still the same music. I still got my tape player. Sorry,
I didn't fully convert to CDs until like mid '98.
Okay.
It was like mid '98. I was like, I think I can't even remember the first CD I got. Might have been like Rakim.
Rakim. I can't remember the first CD I got. There's no way I can.
It might have been Rakim. I'm not sure. I think that was definitely one of the first. Goody Mob maybe. I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Too many.
But yeah, I know there's some. I know I got. Remember 4321, the single, LL Cool J, Redman. Yeah. I got that single. I know that. I probably got some. I think I got Escape from way back in the day. What was that? Understanding. No, hold on. That wasn't Escape, was it? Was that Escape?
That was Escape. That was with Tiny.
Yeah.
She looked so different then. I thought she was cute back then. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah, Understanding. Yeah.
Didn't they do the kick off your shoes and relax your feet?
I think so, yeah.
Party on down to
SK, yeah, that's right. I got a Keith Sweat. Nobody who can do you like me. Nobody.
This one always used to have veins popping out his neck, dog. This always have.
I don't think I can remember any other ones, man. Those are the 3 I know I have. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Yeah, those are 3 I know I have. I hope they still work, man. I still got a damn stereo
with a cassette
player on it somewhere.
There, I don't have it in my possession, but it's in some maybe storage somewhere. But yeah.
All right. Thank you all for listening tonight. We're gonna get out of here. We hope that you enjoyed it, learned some things, and we appreciate that we appreciate you being active in the chat as always, and we appreciate our callers, Court, Andrew, and Taylor, for always giving us some knowledge to chomp on, and tossing us a few ideas to actually talk about, view things a different way. We appreciate that all the time. So we're going to get out of here. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more
to come on Thursday's show.
A lot more to discuss on Thursday. So that's it. Let's let the madness begin out. Have a good night, everybody.